All right, what is going on, everyone? Welcome to the first episode of Yapping. I am AzulGG, of course, and I'm joined by Grant Mathey. Grant, why don't you go and tell the people who you are and kind of what you do or how you participate in the Pokemon TCG community, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to be unfamiliar with you.
What's up, guys? I'm Grant Mathey, Boo_CK or Book, as Bradner called me on the first chat that he made. I am a lawyer based out of Omaha, and I've been playing the Pokemon game most recently since post-COVID, but I was a base set boy. But I qualified for Pan Worlds, and I just have a lot of hot takes. I might be known most for the Grant Rants on the Lake of Rage podcast, and looking to bring some of that different point of view to the discourse that we have in the Pokemon community.
Yeah. So I've known Grant for a little while now. Talked with you a little bit, and you definitely are someone whose opinions I respect on the level of I feel like you have a good amount of like real life like world experience, like you're like you have very grounded takes, and we had like a little bit of a impromptu rant show a little while ago, when I was just kind of discussing the whole elitism thing when that broke out, and you joined me on that for quite a while, and we went back and forth and talked to a couple other people about it, and I really liked the energy, the flow we had, and I was like, I kind of want to do something more with this. I do have the podcast that I do with Chip, and that's great, but I was like, these other topics in the community, to dive into them a little bit deeper, talk about them a little bit more thoroughly with someone else who's coming with like a different perspective on it, which is you specifically, but then also with the show, we're also going to be opening it up to people in general in the community with like call-ins and stuff like that and get different takes. Because like there was someone who called in who had like a really good take about something with the whole like world's qualification when we did that last show, or I did it was like the day after or something. So I think it'd just be cool to like give almost like a platform for people in the community to express their opinions and their takes, and then kind of I don't know, just discuss it and talk about it, and try and come up with the best ways for the Pokemon TCG community to like view things, or how we think it should be viewed, or how we think the community should move forward, or what we want from TPCI, or what we think TPCI should do in these kind of situations as well. So that's where this show was kind of birthed from, Yapping, myself with Grant Mathey. We're going to try and do it weekly. We'll see how many topics come up week to week. Maybe it'll be every other week sometimes. We'll just kind of see how things go. But it's definitely going to be something we're going to try and be doing pretty regularly here. Yeah, I think that's all I had to say. So what is the first topic you wanted to jump into today?
Well, I think real quick we should talk about NAIC before we get into some of the Twitter dramas.
Yeah.
What a great change of pace, I thought, from the Columbus. My biggest issue always has been if we're bringing people to North America, and as you found out recently, NAIC's just USA and Canada. but if we're going to bring people to our countries, let's show them that we have culture and something beyond how terrible Columbus is. One regional airport. I guess New Orleans is also sort of a regional airport, but this one seemed a little more accessible because it's right by Houston, so it's a quick little jump over. But actually getting experience that the United States is more than what you see on the news, or some of the crappy cities that we have. Unfortunately, the poor regional in Peoria, Sacramento wasn't great. Fresno was fine, but still not really showing any of the culture that we have. And I thought this was a great, and I think the community received it really well.
Yeah, I have to agree with that for sure. Like Columbus, I mean, the Midwest is just kind of mid. The only like big city in the Midwest I guess I haven't really experienced is like Chicago. So I can't speak. The only one I can't really speak on is Chicago. But U.S. Nationals / NAIC has like historically been in Columbus and Indianapolis, which, I mean, yeah, as far as like like you mentioned, like showing like the culture of America or somewhere interesting for people to come see when they come to America, everyone, all the foreign players, it definitely is not very much to come to the Midwest. So I didn't even really think about it like that specifically. I've never been to New Orleans before, but I really enjoyed the experience. It definitely is quite a big difference to everywhere else I've been in America. Like for everywhere else I've been, it was a big, not like culture shock, but it was like a big shake up to even me because I've never been there before.
Yeah, it was really cool. That was my first time as well. And I know like you said, we put the mid and Midwest, indie as well is pretty boring. And what else do we have? Is it Fort Wayne? Is that what it was?
There was a regional there, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just terrible cities. um, just boring and not fun. This was like you actually got to go out and do things and was a lot of excitement. So I'm really happy that we got to showcase that we had something, and also that it was closer to like an international airport. That was one of my big things is accessibility. Like I said, some of the places should be like Chicago or Denver, things that people can fly into directly from out of the country and not have to take that connecting flight. I think there was a lot of discourse too. Like I think you said yesterday, people start bitching about airlines right away. You know, they have one bad experience and it's like over for them. You know, I think you're on United now. I'm a Delta boy. But like you said, Spirit can get you one place to another. Yeah, you're going to have to plan for these things. I should probably do like a little video about it. You know, fly early in the morning because your plane's at the airport. You don't have to worry about a plane getting there, plane getting delayed on the way in. And people don't understand that the first time they're doing all these flights, and it just becomes like an issue for them. But it seems like, I mean, there was a storm Wednesday.
Yeah.
I got tied up, and that's fine. But and then also the rain Thursday, which is what made it so humid, all that water on the ground.
Yep.
Other than that, I thought this was a really impressive feat from Pokemon. There's no lines as far as getting into the building, which is usually an issue. There was some issues with the vendors up top, and I get why they have to be in their little rooms so you can lock them at night. But it was kind of a mess up there, and I didn't go to the Pokemon Center. I don't know if you did or not, so I don't have a comment on that.
No, yeah, I didn't go to the Pokemon Center either. I don't know if anyone in chat. I'm sure some people in chat had Pokemon Center experiences, but I didn't go at all. I didn't even go up to the vendor area either. I never even realized that the vendors weren't in the main hall. At least they I mean, they always have vendors at NAIC. Do they sometimes not have vendors at EUIC, or did they have vendors at EUIC this year? I don't even remember.
I think they had them in the same place as last year, in that little corner. Like once you walk in through that little hall, and like to the left, like 2 or 3 maybe. But I haven't gone to them. But
Okay.
it was tough to get up there, and if you needed like 1 or 2 cards, it's more relying on your friends bringing it the next day or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it was a cluster.
Yeah, people in chat are saying 4-hour plus in lines for the Pokemon Center. Mello said, I stood in line for an hour and didn't go to the Pokemon Center.
Yeah.
So you dipped after an hour. Mike says waited for an hour. So yeah, it sounds like there was some decent wait time. Yeah, I didn't go to the Pokemon Center this time around. I don't even know if I went last year either. I guess that's what the thing is always going to be like the most backup. But yeah, like checking in, no lines.
At the airport.
Yeah, you could check.
Huge win.
I didn't even know you could do that at the airport until I was already not at the airport. So I could have done it. Like I got in at like, I don't know when I got in at Tuesday, like 12 in the afternoon on Tuesday.
That was too early. Yeah.
Oh, was it too early? They wasn't open yet?
Yeah, I think it was Wednesday and Thursday.
No, I think it was available on Tuesday.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. I'm pretty sure it was open the whole time. I might be, maybe I'm wrong on that. Or did I get in Wednesday? I don't even remember when I got it. I think when I got in, I could have gone. But maybe you're right. Maybe it was Wednesday only. Maybe I'm trolling. I could be misremembering that. But that's pretty cool. Is that like a thing? Like for like conventions and stuff in locations where they have like check-in at the airport? Like I've never heard of that for anything else.
That's the first time. I go to multiple conferences a year for work. Big ones sometimes, like, you know, bigger than these events, and that's the first time that's happened.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, because I've never heard of that before. I wonder if it's like something specific with Pokemon and kind of New Orleans in general. I wonder if that's like, do you think that's something that Pokemon does? Do you think they shop their event around to cities? Are they big enough?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, especially.
So like
these events are out of hand. The size of these events.
So like, you think there's cities out there like New Orleans and some other cities that are bidding on the Pokemon event? Not like
Yeah,
paying Pokemon, but like being like, this is what we'll offer you if you pick us.
Peoria. Yeah, absolutely.
I think Peoria is doing that.
Yeah,
That's the
we're
only
saying,
reason.
well, you can come for free. Literally, I mean, there's no restaurants open at when we got done at 9 or 9:30, whatever. There's one restaurant, the only good one's right there, the Irish place. Can't get in. Anywhere else sucks.
At Peoria.
So you're eating at, you're ordering Pizza Hut or it's fast food. There's no culture to it. The city died when Caterpillar left. It's and I can say this. I was born in Peoria, so I can freely say these things.
You're allowed.
About the city.
You're allowed to hate on Peoria. All right, I'll let you handle.
Exactly.
I hate it too, but I'm not going to say anything if you're here. I'll let you handle that.
It's very unfortunate what happened to that city, and it deserves a lot of the crap it gets online and at the event. I know it was day 2, right? And they run the event pretty well, but boy, the city, like I said on the intros, like I'm traveling to these cities, some of the best ones. I love Vancouver. Yep. San Diego was great. Seeing cities with culture and restaurants and things that you can do outside of Pokemon with your friends that you don't get to see as much is what the game's about for me. So getting stuck in some of these bad cities, Columbus, Peoria, Fort Wayne, it definitely isn't great.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't feel. I definitely get that feeling for sure. And like, that's not like you said, that's like something you look for towards personally. And not everyone does, but I feel like a lot of people do, right? They want some like other little things to do outside of just the event. I think a big one is literally just decent restaurants around. I think it's like a big one because like, I mean, we're all at the venue on Saturday until whenever, super late, or Friday for ICs. You want to be able to at least go somewhere decent, especially for regionals, because like you like show up Friday. A lot of people get in usually pretty late, so then it's like Saturday, play all day. It's nice to be able to go to a restaurant after that and just hang out with your friends and goof off or whatever it might be. So that definitely is like missed at places like the Peoria for sure. It really is just venue and hotel, and that's like it.
And the IC is usually like that extra day people get into, so the city's like that much more important. So to get away from Columbus was really refreshing to see. And I guess we're going to be there 2 more years, it sounds like. Tough to tell by the reports Uber driver says.
Yeah, I don't even remember who tweeted that out, but we're definitely there next year. It was confirmed. For anyone who doesn't know, we are going back to New Orleans for next NAIC. We'll be in New Orleans for sure, confirmed. And then after that, we're not sure, but someone's Uber driver, I don't even remember who retweeted.
I don't remember either.
But someone's Uber driver said that it's a 3-year contract, which I think lines up with a lot of other Pokemon's other like IC things. It generally feels like 3 years, 2 or 3 years at least. We're usually in locations. How many times has UIC been in London now? A lot. Is it 2 years in a row now?
2 plus the Worlds.
2 plus the Worlds. I wouldn't be surprised if we go back there again.
Time to move on. Let's go. Let's get out of there.
I mean, I wouldn't mind that myself as well. It does feel like it's a really good location for. Apparently, it's not that good of a location for Europeans, but I don't know if there's a better location. But I think for everyone outside of Europe, it's a great location. Like to be able to fly into there and then experience London for the first time for some people at this point. But almost maybe a majority of people who are going to UIC next year will have already been to London before, though. With how many times we've been in London, though.
Sure. Yeah, London's so spread out. That convention center's so big. It'd be nice. I remember Frankfurt was actually kind of nice because they had a lot of stuff right in the area. Mm-hmm. You didn't have to take a train or go do things, but that was also like right after COVID, so tough to really judge. And also Frankfurt kind of, as a city, to me, kind of sucked overall. It was like just kind of industrialized and cold, whereas you can find pockets of life in London. But I'd like to see more of Europe. I don't like being stuck. Like Europe should be rotating, and I also think NAIC should be rotating. LAIC should be rotating.
Where else would you even go in? I mean, it would have to probably still be in Brazil, right? I think it would have to be in Brazil. Maybe. Where else would you go? I mean, I guess you could go
Argentina, Buenos Aires.
Okay. It's just like
I
there's
don't
so
know.
much of the player base is Brazilian players, right?
Right.
In Latin America, it's like definitely I would say it's probably the majority. I don't know for sure, but it feels like it's a lot of them. A lot
I
of
mean,
Latin American players are Brazilian.
I
So it's
mean, we found out Mexico is part of LAIC.
yeah,
Plenty of locations in Mexico.
part of the Latin American region. Yeah. Um, and I heard that they were actually building a TPCI headquarters in Mexico City.
Oh, there we go.
So that would make sense. Maybe next year it'll be in Mexico City. I've been to Mexico City twice now because there used to be a Mexico City regionals before. Man, I don't remember when the last one was, but I went there 2 years in a row for the Mexico City regionals. Yeah, I could see them actually putting the IC there, I guess, for
Now, I
sure.
remember Aldo kept trying to get a SBE in Cancun again. That would have been
Yeah,
awesome. See, that's another travel. I've been there before. I mean, it's not the best city, but that's something you go travel for, and you take a day or two extra and have some fun.
yeah, definitely. That would be one. That would be maybe the only special event I would ever go to. Like one in Cancun would be pretty cool. I turned it to more of a vacation than anything, but that would
Right.
actually be like a fun one to go to and go to play a little Pokemon, hang out, for sure. So yeah, New Orleans. I mean, yeah, the whole check-in process super good. And honestly, NAIC last year was super crowded. It was hot in the venue. It was crowded. It was cool in the venue, and there was the layout was just better. I don't know if they just had more space or if they laid it out better, but it definitely felt like I wasn't, packed in and could not move around the venue. A lot more space to work with.
Here we go. We can have our first disagreement. I thought last year's NAIC was crammed right at the beginning part. You had to wrap
Yeah,
around the entryway, and then the exit's like right there. So it became really clustered, and that's really the problem that they have right now. Structuring these events is just people flow.
I don't
Um,
have enough entrances.
right. Yeah, exactly. Why don't we have more entrances?
Yeah,
It makes no sense. And the tables this year were so thin. You could widen those out. There was like 30 feet to the wall back there. We could have widen those out to make it a little more walkable. And also, I said this since the beginning: put up signs at the end of a few of the rows to show what numbers there, because you don't know when you're walking. You're like, oh, I'm
yeah.
1200, and you're saying at 1746. Like, all right, where do I go? And so you're just like you've ruined the whole flow of traffic trying to cut and weave to get somewhere. And I haven't posted my numbers yet, but I like to take the numbers between rounds and all that. It was a 5-minute turnaround from posting of pairings to time start.
And
So it was pretty quick.
you think is that faster than the average?
That's a little bit faster than the average
It did
at
feel
the
pretty quick.
biggest event. Yeah.
I never felt what's it called felt really fast. Which was it LA? Maybe not LA. What was the one before LA? Or maybe it was Orlando. It felt like they were starting the round. One of the ones towards the end felt like they were starting the rounds like super quickly. Like pairings were up, and then it was like 3 minutes later. It was like, all right, round begin. This one I didn't feel pressed too much. I think I had maybe one round where I was always ready to go. I had maybe one or two opponents who were starting their shuffling as the round started.
Yeah.
But it wasn't too bad. There was definitely some other events who I felt like were worse earlier in the year.
LAIC was fast. I remember, and I'm not going to name names. Maybe in a future episode when we get rolling here. But I remember immediately that you saw the guy and he's like waving to him. He's like, "Hey, I'm coming," and it was because it was like 4-minute turnaround. It was so quick.
Yeah.
And the guy raised his hand immediately, because he's standing like 3 feet away, and the judge was right there, and they counted it.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
dude, that's like the worst.
To get the late penalty or whatever.
Yeah. Can't lose or whatever they call it. I don't know.
If the person is like right there and you can see them, it feels it feels like the same thing as like any other kind of like rule shark type situation where like if you're sitting down at your table, like all right, so anyone who doesn't know, when time starts, if you are not at your table or your opponent is not there, you get marked late for the round. If you're late for the round, you have to win 2 games to win the set. If you win 1 game and the second game doesn't finish, you lose. If you win 1 game and your opponent wins 1 game and you're in game 3, it's not a tie, you lose. You have to win 2 games of Pokemon. If you don't win 2 games of Pokemon, you always lose if you're late. And for a person who's marked late. So, what's Grant is bringing up is like, I'm sitting, like if you're sitting at your table and you look to your right, like you look to your right and you see your opponent coming down the aisle and waving like they're about to come play against you, they're letting you know they're just like almost there, and then the loudspeaker person goes, and begin round 4, and then the person at the table just immediately raises their hand before their opponent can walk up. Like their opponent's walking, they can see them, they both like notice each other, and they call the judge right before their opponent can sit down so they can get the late penalty on their opponent. So if they were just there like 10 seconds earlier, they don't get the late penalty, which does it can feel a little bit bad if you're sitting there and the round starts in like 2 is about to start and your opponent just shows up at the end of it. It does feel bad on your end. But a lot of the reasons for people showing up to the table late is just like struggling to find the table or like just getting through the crowds. You're like, it's the back of the crowds, right?
Yeah, they weren't the only ones standing up still. I mean, it was so quick. But it rang true to me because he was like, "Hey, I'm coming.
Yeah.
I'm right here." And it's like just got up right away. Like he's like 5 feet away, dude.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, it definitely feels it just feels like one of those things that feels bad in the game. It's one of those things that I haven't fully fleshed out my opinion on either, because it does feel rule sharky and feels weird to do, but we are in a competition, and like how far does that go? One thing I always like to think about is that like we're not the NBA of Pokemon, right? I always say we're the T-ball, or we're the T-ball to the MLB, right? There's the whole range of players playing at these tournaments. We're not just the MLB of Pokemon. It's not just the best players in the world playing, because then I think you maybe view things a little bit differently for sure. If you only have Tord and Bradner and Brent Tonneson and James Cox and Natalie Miller and Stefan Ivanov and Gustavo, like if that's the only players in the tournament, being a little bit more strict and the players being a little bit more cutthroat kind of makes sense, I feel like. But as soon as we like open it up to this wide player base, it feels scummy when people do those kind of things at tournaments for sure.
Yeah, but I mean that's the competitive advantage, I guess, to some degree. It's like you have to take.
Yeah, if you're not taking it,
variants,
if you're a really good player and you're not taking those advantages, but really good player B is taking those advantages, you're putting yourself not directly at a disadvantage against the opponent across from you. It's almost like a more of a macro scope where it's like if X really, really good players taking consistent advantage of these situations and I'm not, you are not putting yourself at a disadvantage specifically against the person you're against, but you're against all the other really good players in the tournament, right? And it's not even for that tournament specifically. It's like a compounded thing, tournament over tournament over tournament. How many match points does X good player gets that literally tries to angle shoot every single scenario versus someone who doesn't? They're going to end up with just like on average more match points per tournament, which leads to more top cuts, more chances to win tournaments, and you're just giving yourself like a disadvantage on like that scale. That's how I've like thought about it recently. So it's like at what point as a good player who's trying to be really competitive, where do you draw the line if you know where some other players are drawing the line? I don't know what the correct solution there is. I would not call a judge personally if my opponent was 5 feet away. But...
or they're still standing, maybe putting their bag down.
Yeah.
like, well, technically
they're not sitting down. They don't have their deck out. Where's the late penalty?
We could hit some of these topics. I think one thing I wanted to touch on that you talked about yesterday, before we get into some of the Twitter stuff. Just judging in general.
Yeah. Oh, actually, one last thing
about these judging. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Because you said you like the idea of switching it up in Europe, switching it up in North America. Are you happy or not happy that we're going back to New Orleans then?
I think I'm happy because I'd like to take another day or two down there.
Me too.
I think it's worth it to let people experience it, especially since it's a cutoff event. Not everyone got in, and hopefully maybe it grows a little bit. There was definitely space for more people. Would I like to see more cities and more frequently changed events? I know there's economies of scales of staying at the same place years in a row, but definitely one more year in New Orleans I think is right. 2 might be a little much.
Yeah. But that comes down to like that's like the business side of things where I feel like it's tough for us to maybe speculate, like to hate on TPCI too much for putting it there maybe 3 years in a row, because they have to like wheel and deal with the cities, and I'm sure the cities wants them there for 3 years, so it's like that's like the whole business side of things. I'm happy we're going back because there's a lot of stuff that I didn't get to experience this time around, because I did leave pretty early after missing day 2 so I could come back and stream the finals, but like making my way to Bourbon Street and stuff like that the next time around, I'm definitely gonna try and do more stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just really tough too, like the time of year. Again, I said it rained Wednesday and Thursday morning, so it's super humid, and so you wake up to 83 and humid. Not the best
Yeah.
way to get around the town, but the Uber system worked really well down there. It was pretty cheap to move around the
Yeah.
town,
Yeah.
and they were like 1 or 2 minutes away whenever you called them. So
It's like they're waiting
um,
around every corner.
yeah, it was amazing. I mean, when you see the streets and they're all one ways and like bricks and the infrastructure's kind of crappy, like crumbling. Just to see them all ready to go and understanding, like I thought across convention center, you'd see cars go for an hour without stopping unless the pedestrian light was going, and the cars were, they're still letting people through, so it really didn't affect traffic or anything. We got dropped off down in I think it's Jackson Square for brunch. Yeah, it was tight. One ways, like you're making figure eights everywhere, but um, overall, the city knows how to do tourism. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. Everything felt really good, really convenient for sure. Definitely
Yeah.
enjoyed it. Excited to go back for one more time at least. The third time I feel a little bit repetitive, but
Yeah, absolutely.
at least we got out of the Midwest, and hopefully we stay out of there for a while. That'd be like a goal for sure. All right, but what were you saying? You said you want to talk judging.
Judging real quick.
Go ahead.
Well, I think you covered a little bit of it yesterday, but um, I'm a lawyer. I don't do the in court stuff, but all your judgments are public usually. I don't understand why judgments. So you don't have to put the judge name. I know somebody said targeting people, targeting judges and death threats and things like that. Yeah, that could be bad.
Yeah.
But you know who the head judge is. So if you appeal to the top, you know who that person is either way. Judges are wearing name tags. So if you're getting a judge call and you're seeing it, you know who your judge is. I figure the best way to handle it is to publish each judge call. They don't have to put the names on it.
Yeah.
Either way, but we need like a compendium of what the judge calls were, the rulings. Did it call over head judge? Was it appealed? Et cetera, et cetera. That'd be a start, right? To start getting some transparency in this, because in the Gabriel one, we only have one-sided info.
Yep.
On the Noah one, we're getting his full, Google Doc and video breakdown on Loom, which is quite the thing to say. But you brought up, we're not the MLB. MLB judges and judges going all the way up to umpire, if they don't make it to MLB, if they fail their test at the end of the year, they go back to the beginning.
All the way back?
All the way back. They have to go back to school. So that might be a way to hold judges accountable, is you're graded at the end of the year. And if you don't meet a grade, you drop down.
Yeah.
Because they still get, they don't get paid. They get the travel to the ICs. They get access to the professor program stuff. But maybe hold them accountable to some degree internally. We don't need their names and stuff, but just keep them honest.
Yeah. I know they do evaluations, like head judge or like leads do evaluations for like the judges under them. I don't know where that leads. I'm sure if there's some really bad situations, it goes somewhere. I know some judges have been like banned in the past. I guess that's for like more for like misconduct than like just giving out too many DQs wrongly, probably. I don't think there's ever been like a judge being banned for something like that. I think we need to demand TPCI. It's hard for me. I guess maybe demand's not the right word. We want to see TPCI do an infrastructure shift around the judging program and then reevaluate as the player base.
Yeah.
But we need the TPCI to make the first step. We need them to be, and it could be paying the judges. It could be more training, some kind of like tiered system within the judging that they can climb up to get better positions. There needs to be an infrastructure change to the judging system, and then us as the player bases can evaluate how we judge from there, I think. But we need TPCI to make the first step. We're kind of just waiting for TPCI. I feel like we need them to make an infrastructure change on that side. And as the player base, it's hard. Like I always go to the thing where it's like it's really hard for us to like overjudge the judges because they are volunteers. There's not a ton of infrastructure. There's no training. So I think we really just need TPCI to make the first move, and I think they will have to. I think with where the game is going, becoming more official, bigger, and I think hopefully leading to more of a esports-esque style of marketing of the competitions, then that will get to the point where they're going to need to make that step. Because they don't want these things happening when they get that much bigger, right?
Well, okay. Should we try and get our first caller in on this?
Yeah,
Champ
sure.
Buster would love to speak on this as a player turned judge.
Okay, yeah, sure. We can get Champ Buster in. All right, so for me to do this, Champ, I need you to send me a message on Discord. My Discord is AzulGG. I'll then add you as a friend, add you to the call, and we'll go from there. So that's what I need, and then we can go from there. So all you have to do is send me a message on Discord, and I'll get you added.
Well, I can fill some time while we wait. I do think that there is some inherent power that some of these judges feel when they, have the authority to make decisions. But you also see the first judge you call usually, right? It's not the one that makes the decision. Is that just how I'd like to hear more about the structure because I'm not really familiar, but I just know like the first guy you ask, it's like, well, this is just a flip over the card. All right, we'll shuffle it back in, draw one. Easy warning, whatever. But it always takes a second judge. I guess that's the way it is. I'm not really sure.
As far as I know, well, there's like the floor judges. I mean, it's possible that when you call over a judge, you do get like a higher up judge or a head judge immediately, but there's just less of them, so it's likely you're going to get a floor judge.
Okay.
And whenever there's like, I think whenever there's any kind of confliction or appeal, they always go confer with someone else, or the head judge gets involved, or like there is like I think there is like at these ICs and stuff, there's like multiple head judges now.
Yeah, I saw a lot of red shirts. Right? Is that they wear the red shirts? Or red hats or something.
Yeah, they usually have the red shirts, I think. But hey, maybe Champ Buster can probably let us know for sure. Wait, did you send me a message or did you send me a friend request? And if you send me a friend request, what is your name on there on Discord? I can add you. I think anything above a warning, they're supposed to confer with others on a friend request. Okay, what is your name on Discord so I can find you? Okay, I found you.
I'll let you try and pronounce it first. And we have lost one of our guests potentially, the one I asked you about.
Okay.
But I think we should still probably touch on it.
Yeah, I'm
quickly.
Down. Let's see. How do I add people to? I forgot how to add people to a call. And yeah,
the head judge now is like a team of head judge. Okay, Turner Hill would know.
Be better to do. We should probably switch this up for next time, but we'll rock it like this for now. All right, let's see if this works. It might disconnect us for a second. All right.
All right.
You can feel free to turn your camera on or notch on, up to you.
Yeah, give me a second.
Oh, lost him now.
Oh no.
All right, he called in. He tried to call me instead of calling back into the call. But hopefully he figures it out.
Rough start, episode 1. Don't worry, guys. We'll figure this out.
Yeah, we'll probably just have to go through. I think in the future we'll just go through.
Oh, there we go.
There he is.
Sorry about that, guys.
No problem. All right, so is there anything you wanted to start with then? Like, where did you want to?
I can speak to a little bit about the organizational process involved. So my name's John Orgel. I've topped a couple of regionals in a long time ago before COVID, and then I moved into judging this after COVID. So I've judged 4 regionals this year, including an assistant head judge spot in Orlando. I didn't get accepted for NAIC, but I did day 2 as a player.
Nice.
So yeah. So I have a good balance of judging and playing. So I think I can kind of bridge the gap, if that helps. Yeah, it's just to go over the organization of it. Whenever you have a judge call, anything above a prize, anything above a warning, you have to get confirmation from an assistant head judge. So if you have to give a double prize penalty or anything above that, you have to go to an assistant head judge and verify the ruling before you issue that penalty. So if you have a table judge come over, they're going to take an assessment of the situation, and it can be something as easy as, oh, I drew an extra card. Okay, well, it's clearly probably going to be a double prize penalty unless, it's something like you drew a card for turn when your opponent was going first instead of you, then you might be able to de-escalate it. But a lot of the times, stuff's cut and dry, but you have to verify everything kind of as a checks and balance with an assistant head judge, with the thought of we're going to be able to nip some of the weirder or less confident judges that don't really have a lot of experience issuing or giving penalties. We're going to be able to kind of guide them through that process. If that makes sense.
Yeah. What do you think about transparency as far as judging goes?
I'm here for it, man. I really am. I think, and I don't want any witch hunts. I think you guys, Azul, I know, does a decent job of, kind of moderating anything that we say about the decisions that are made. It's tough. I've stream judged. So this past season, I stream judged 3 regionals. I was on stream, Pittsburgh, Toronto, and Charlotte. And stream judging is a different game. You're kind of out on an island. You don't have sometimes, a lot of the times the stream judges aren't assistant head judges, for better or for worse. A lot of times it's just hard to get assistant head judges over there for stream, especially day one. You're not going to really see that happen. And day one especially, you'll only have one judge on stream. So you won't have, you'll be kind of forced to make a lot of tough calls on your own. And that's something I think that people don't think about, is a lot of times when we're making tough calls on the floor, we're able to go over and talk with another judge who maybe is a little more experienced or can kind of just give it a different point of view on something. When you're on stream, you have to be quick and you have to be confident with what you're doing. You can't second guess yourself, and it can look really bad if you make a decision that probably isn't the best with hindsight. But I don't know what else you're supposed to do other than you can stop the game and kind of go from there. But yeah, the transparency, going back to the question, I think it's necessary. I don't always know how much help, I don't know, with accountability, it's kind of we can know who made the call, we can know why they made the call. I think that's really important, but I don't know, trying to think how to say this. I just hope that you want good to come out of it, right? You want everybody to benefit from the scenario. And I just worry that the only thing that would come is oh, now we know the judge. Now they're just going to be kind of lambasted by players anytime that they have to go and judge another regional. And I think we've seen that with some judges in the past. But I don't know. It's tough. But yeah, I do think that anytime a judge gives a ruling, they should have confidently, they should give you the thought process behind that ruling. Anytime they give you a penalty, they should say, okay, we're trying to gain an advantage gained by giving you this 2-price penalty, right? So if you're getting a 2-price penalty, I'm not doing it just because I don't like you. I'm doing it to negate an advantage you gained in the game. And so we're trying to move from you have an advantage to your opponent now is back on equal footing and able to move the game forward from there. So at least that's how it should be, but I don't always think that's what happens. I'm not naive to that. And it would be nice to have some transparency with, why a ruling is made, and then why, especially DQs. I do think kind of the magic model that was brought up a couple times yesterday. I think that would be beneficial, but a lot of times Pokemon judges are kind of tied by TPCI and their policies. And I don't really want to I don't want to stop and go into it too much, because then I risk losing my ability to judge regionals in the future.
Yeah.
That's not something I really, that's tough.
Wasn't there an official thing? We'll post.
You're not allowed to comment on a ruling that you weren't a part of.
Was that what it is? So, as a staff member of an official event, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what it was.
So
yeah.
I wasn't a judge for this past event, but even if I wasn't involved directly with a ruling, I wouldn't be able to say anything about it publicly. And probably I shouldn't say anything about it privately. So I always like get asked by my locals, like, what do I think about this call that was made? And I just have to parrot, like, I wasn't there. I don't know the full story. I can't really speak to it because I don't know. And that's not how I necessarily feel as a player, but it is how I have to respond to a scenario in order to like kind of keep it moving. And it's not ideal, but and I don't a gag order is not necessarily the best way to fix it, but it is a way to fix it. So there you go.
I think like at the very least, I don't know how far down we should go. And like if we're like documenting every single penalty and then that gets released after each event. I mean, if we need more people to do that, the first thing, if we need, like, that would require some manpower. But if we get rid of paper pairings,
well, not really. All you have to do, it's already on Arcanine.
It's already on Arcanine? All of them?
It's any penalty issued in a regional is recorded in Arcanine.
Don't tell Julian.
Yeah.
Dude, he's gonna find it, bro.
But don't. I mean, I think that's probably public knowledge somewhere.
Yeah,
I don't think that's me telling anybody anything new. Hopefully not.
Well, I knew it was documented. It had to be documented somewhere because I know, like, I mean,
it is.
Your stuff carries over from round to round, but then like also they can go back and look at previous tournaments. I was pretty sure I knew about that. They can go back and look at previous tournaments. But
I'm not too familiar with that aspect of it. I just knew, like, when I'm judging a regionals, if I'm giving a call round 8, round 9, even round day 2, I'm looking at to see if that player has another penalty from an earlier round, especially if it's related to a penalty I'm about to give or if it's related to a ruling I'm about to give on something that they just done.
Well, I mean, I guess that makes sense. It had to be somewhere, right? Because if they give a warning for a slow play penalty, it escalates into a 2 prize or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it seems like it would be something where they could go back and look at it. I don't know if they need to make everything public or make a statement on everything, but I think DQs, right? I feel like almost every single DQ there should be.
Day 2, 2 prizers, maybe.
I don't know. That's a lot, probably at that point. At least DQs, right? I think throughout the whole tournament.
For sure,
DQs for sure.
And then maybe, I don't know, maybe you don't make a statement on DQs in the juniors and seniors division. They're, with them being kids. I could see that. A Masters division at the very least. I mean, I guess they're still basically kids in Masters division for the younger Masters division players. But still, I think once you're in the Masters division, there's a DQ. There should be some kind of statement. Or even if you exclude seniors, if you have something like the Gabriel Fernandez situation, world champion, best senior in the world, has won the other 2 ICs this year, and then he gets DQ'd at NAIC, and then TPCI says nothing, like, that's, I don't know. Like, I feel like they gotta say something on that situation, right? Like, maybe not every senior that gets DQ'd, but like Gabriel Fernandez is definitely like different than any senior getting DQ'd, right?
I did want to mention his last comment was kind of it could be interpreted the other way. As in, I am cheating, and the only way you can stop me is to DQ me.
Oh.
Just putting out. I'm not saying that he is. I played Among Us with Gabriel. I think he's a great kid and obviously a great Pokemon player. But you could read it the other way.
Yeah.
They can't stop me unless they DQ me. It can be read both ways.
That would be a crazy ego trip. If he's like, I've been cheating this whole time. The only way they can get me finally is if you DQ me. You have to do it, otherwise I'm just gonna win again.
That's the lawyer in me, I guess.
Yeah. I don't think, and like, that's like one thing I actually mentioned on the podcast with Chip the other day was just like, I am at this point comfortable with just taking the player sides because we're not waiting for anything, because TPCI never makes statements. So I don't feel like I need to play defense for TPCI anymore. Of course, like, I don't want any judges to get witch hunted, because obviously, like, Gabriel could have like put the judge's name out there and made it very obvious that he doesn't like them and that people shouldn't like them, yada yada yada. And obviously he didn't do that. And I'm not trying to like call out any judges specifically or think they shouldn't judge tournaments moving forward. I think as long as, like, if a judge make a mistake but they just want to improve and want to be better the next time around, then sure, let them do it again. Obviously there should be a point where there's only so many mistakes that can happen, right? Before it's like, all right, at some point we need you have to step down. Like, maybe they were a assistant head judge, but it's like, all right, you earned assistant head judge over the beginning part of the season, but these last couple tournaments you've had, some bad callings. We're gonna have to like bump you back down to floor judge for a little while until you like prove yourself again. Obviously, like, that seems reasonable in some cases. We should never like be witch hunting. There should be never, judges' names should never be brought up. Like, obviously people could find out who the judges were if you dig hard enough.
Look at their name tag.
Yeah, well, I mean, like,
when you write your report on Twitter, put the name of the judge. They're wearing a name tag.
Yeah, like, I don't think we should do anything like that. It's like doxing, right? Like, if you really want to, you can probably find most people's addresses and information about them, but it doesn't mean you should put it out there, right?
The players doxed either way, though. If I post something, I say in round 6, this happened. You know my opponent.
Yeah.
You can look up pairings. So everyone's doxed. Everyone's name's out there. So full transparency on all ends of the field. You know.
Do you think we should have the judges' names involved or shouldn't?
Honestly, I do. I think as a starting point, it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, because I feel like that just maybe you have to like build first a culture around it first and a understanding that they're gonna move forward with putting this information out there. But I feel like if you were releasing judges' names immediately after some of these incidences, it would be really ugly. And there's no positive to come out of putting the judges' names out there, because like the current take on this stuff from the community would just be toxic. Would be toxicity towards the judges
for 2 days.
For 2 days. Move on. Yeah, but it's like
I'd like to see it tracked internally. Like, you know, anytime we have a DQ, I'd love to see it. A report that anytime you have a DQ in any level of a tournament, you have to write DQ reports. So as a judge,
okay.
So you have to write a report saying, okay, this is why this player was disqualified from the tournament. It's not just like a decision that's made, you know, in the heat of the moment. It's made with this report in mind, and you're recording evidence and all that kind of stuff. And that's usually, I guess, a lot of times players will appeal these DQs, especially if a ban is given. You're going to appeal that.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be good. I don't know. I've DQ'd players from like league cups and stuff. I've never done a regional level tournament. But I don't know what the process is exactly for assistant head judging when you're DQing a player for that. But it would be kind of good to have like a debrief with a TPCI employee or something like that anytime you have to DQ an employee or DQ a player from a tournament. I think that would go a long way. Maybe, I don't know, like maybe you don't have to answer. Like if it's obvious, you shouldn't have to answer for everything. But like we should have some faith in our judges. That's what I'm saying. But I think it would still benefit, like in some ways, having a formal process in place, like a formal review process. Anytime we have, you know, it's kind of like when I used to drive a box truck for my job, and anytime I had an incident, I had to go talk with somebody from corporate about what happened exactly, and because it affects the company overall. Yeah. So anytime you have like a DQ, you think of it the same way. Like you're in an accident essentially, or the play, like you're not necessarily. Like you're ending somebody's tournament run, and I think good judges especially, but most judges will see that, and see it for what it is. They'll say, okay, I'm ending a player's tournament run here. You know, is this the best decision?
In this case, World's run. I know you can't comment on that, but World's run was ended.
Yeah.
I'm not oblivious. I wasn't involved in that ruling, but yeah, it was. It's tough to see as a player. Like I hate to see that. Like I had some stuff like in my tournament run. Like I had penalties. I had stuff like that. Like I'm not. I don't play perfect, but it's definitely just like it's not hard to imagine. Like I had a marked card in my deck when I got deck checked because I just had a dragon shield that was a slightly different color than the other dragon shields in the box, and it's like well. Thankfully it wasn't like my one of a spec. It was a Buddy Poffin, but like I could see like you don't know, man. Like it's so kind of surreal to play Pokemon in this day and age when cash prizes are 25,000, and like I've been playing since like 2011 when the best you could hope for was a booster box and a pat on the back and a shiny like acrylic thing that says state champion or whatever. Actually, so it's so different than it was, But I think. The biggest thing I can contribute to this conversation, I feel like, as a player, is that I just want judges to be held to the same high standards we expect out of like top level players. I honestly, that's the biggest thing I've had issue with, and I'm not saying like I expect every judge that judges at the NAIC level to be able to like beat Michael Premawat in a 1-on-1 or something like that, but I expect them to like know how to pilot the top 5 decks of the meta efficiently, and like know like does a pace of play penalty in this situation like kind of like and I'm not going to comment on what exactly happened with Gabriel, but just saying a situation where like if he's identifying that reset stamp doesn't help me against Snorlax, like if a judge is able to identify that should inform your ruling in some way. And I'm not saying that, like, there's other things like I've seen brought up, like, well, reset stamp, if you put it to the top, you know, prevents your opponent from milling something else that's important because it's not important, you know. But I think just having
go ahead.
I was just saying.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying that generally speaking, I think I would love to see like an aptitude test beyond just a basic level. Like, here's the situation, what's the ruling? Like, I'd like to see an aptitude test given for the application process for NAIC. Like right now, it just asks, what are your, like, it was not like, I don't know if you guys know anything about the application process for NAIC or anything.
Very little.
But it was basically just like a form, a Google form you filled out where you listed the top 3 choices you want, and you put in the last 2 regionals you judged, or the most, like, the experience you had from those 2, and then you put references, and that was really about it. It didn't really give you any like tough scenarios to solve, or didn't give you like, you know, and I'm not saying that like you don't need that for like every level of judging. And we need to have a mix of judges. We need to have newer, experienced, and veteran judges, all levels. But it would definitely, I think, be helpful to, like, you know, like if you did a pre-employment test when you're doing a coding job or something like that, like you would do the same thing as a judge. Like, can you correctly identify within a timely manner what the ruling that you should be giving is here?
Yeah,
I feel like good.
I mean, yeah, like I mentioned before, I think we called you in. There just needs to be a structure shift in the judging program for TPCI, in like
trying
more.
They're doing a professor conference in Minneapolis later this month.
Okay.
So it's like a weekend long conference. And they do online conferences. I've done those a couple times. And they have speakers come in, like they had Stefan Erickson come in to talk about, you know, randomization. They've had people come in and talk about like competitive level stuff, but you get, you know, a whole mix of stuff, and it's good. It's tough because you're having to balance organized play with high level staff at regionals, right? Like, so you're having to teach people how to run a league and how to report pre-releases and how to, you know, get people excited about Go in their area. And like
totally different things.
Yeah. So it doesn't really necessarily lend one to one. You don't have like the MLB referee boot camp or something like that. Like you see, I don't know if you've ever seen that, where they'll have like people go and do like a whole 2-week program in Vegas or something like that, and just learn how to be a ref and go through tryouts and all that. Yeah. So I don't think it's at that level, but yeah, I definitely think it's shifting to a better model. But yeah, there's definitely room to grow. For sure.
I feel like in my head, I'm thinking like, because currently there's like 3 levels of judging right now. There's 3 different levels you can get. I feel like there needs to be like 10. There needs to be like 10 tiers, and you just work from the bottom up. And there's like very distinct things you need to achieve to go from tier to tier, and then each tier allows you access to certain other things. And like to go from tier to tier, you need to have approval from some higher level, especially at the higher levels of tiers. And when you get to tier 1 or tier 10, whatever way you order it, you know, that's when you can become like a head judge at an IC or something like that. But I feel like there's just such a lack of structure to become a better judge, or to make sure that the people that are doing the job are qualified enough. Because like there is, like you said, like, there's the conferences and stuff where people talk about stuff. And I do think there are plenty of judges out there that are very good. And the most important thing is wanting to get better and improve. And those are the people that matter the most, that you want to be judging. Even if they would be terrible judge right now, if they want to be better and want to improve, those are the people you want to be judging the events and getting better at judging, and then putting in those higher up positions to be able to make those judgment calls to DQ or not DQ Noah or Gabriel. And then from there, wanting to improve, even if they mess up that time, if they want to improve past that, those are the people we want to be judging this. But I feel like there's such a lack of structure to, like, there's no funnel. There's no like way to funnel those people to the top. I feel like there just needs to be a massive structure overhaul on the judging side of things. And I think with the way the game is growing, that's what we need. The question is just like, how long is it going to take TPCI to do it?
So with 3 levels, what differentiates a floor level from from masters from side events? Could the same level be on both sides? Like, you don't get held accountable on side events.
I mean, it's kind of, I can't speak to the selection process for NAIC. I'm not involved with that. But there's a wide variety of aptitude at every level of a tournament. Yeah. You have basic level judges, stage 1 level judges, and stage 2. Stage 2 generally is that's people that are interviewed specifically by somebody from TPCI before they're given that level of judge. And you have to go through it's an involved process. Stage 1's a little less, you have to answer open-ended questions about rulings and stuff like that. So I don't know. What's your question is basically just what level of skill do you have to be a judge?
Yeah, could you be the same level of skill in doing side events and doing Masters Day 2 at the same time? Either one, they just kind of put you...
Not Day 2, but yeah, Day 1 I've seen... you just have to fill bodies sometimes.
Okay.
Because you don't have... you had 2,600 players at Masters, and that's we had I think the judge staff was 200. I don't remember.
There was more than that than applied, right? There was more than 200 applicants.
Yeah, there was about 400 that applied from what I heard.
So that's what I think. So the people aren't missing. We have the people to staff the events. It's just teaching them to get better at it or helping them improve as judges. So that's what I'm saying. It's all on TPCI at the end of the day. It's not even as much on the people, because these people want to judge because they're showing up to volunteer, and they are volunteering at the end of the day. I don't think I would volunteer to judge, so I'm very thankful for everyone. But
I think that's a cop-out in some ways. I'm not trying to say it's not a valid thing, but it also is just they're getting a paid trip to NAIC, they're getting a paid hotel room to NAIC, they're getting 6 booster boxes whenever they judge NAIC. They're getting fairly compensated for their time. So I don't want to say that you're in. I think that you should it's kind of, it's tough. I don't think you should be held to legal standard of you're a paid employee and everything that you do is on part of Pokemon. You're still able to be made, you still make mistakes at any job you do. As a player, you're still making mistakes throughout your tournament run. And you just kind of have to own that and kind of move on from that. And hopefully you do that. That's the biggest thing, I think, is kind of just growing from that.
Yeah, I think the point, I guess, is we make a mistake playing, right, as players. You don't get points. You don't advance towards the end goals, win the tournament, make it to Worlds, whatever, stipends, who cares? Same thing should be across the board, judges. You screw up a few times. You have a history of, you've given up the most double prize penalties. Maybe you have a harder judging record. Yeah. Maybe some of it's wrong. It should all kind of, balance out, I guess, is what I'm thinking. I have one last question.
All right.
How often, before we move on, but how often does chat come into play on prize penalties?
In stream judging?
Yeah.
I will say that chat's pretty good at lately, when I've stream judged regionals, we do have somebody looking at chat while we're don't get
got a chat watcher out there.
Don't get me wrong.
Put out chat. You gotta make sure you put out your best chats. They're watching you. You can put out your best chats when you're chatting. They're watching you.
Yeah. But we do have somebody on the judge team generally watching chat. If I'm at the table by myself, I'll have we get the video feed from backstage on the front. We get Twitch chat, the Twitch feed, because you can see a different camera angle. And then I usually have PKM and card open up just so I can see because I usually put silly decks on day 1, and it's I don't know what Wiggly Tuffy X attack damage is off the top of my head. I have to read that card. I'm not immune to as a player. I'm sure you have to pick up a card and read it. We're all
every time.
Yeah, but yeah, there's times where I've had somebody come up from behind stage and tell me we've had stuff caught by chat in the past as a regionals judge, as a stream judge. Is chat always right? I don't have to answer that. They know they're right.
You say 2 different things and they're both right.
Exactly, right. So you have to, as a judge, especially on stream, you have to temper that. You have to like read it, think through the scenario real quick, and then be like, okay, no, it's fine. Like they're randomizing perfectly fine from my perspective, and all that, or whatever you want to go through. So yeah, man, thanks for having me on. But you got anything else?
Appreciate it. No, that was great.
Yeah, thanks for coming
A lot
on.
of insight.
Yeah, gotta go.
All right, see ya. Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
should we jump into some of the Twitter stuff?
Yeah, sure. Which one did you want to start with?
Well, we can do a long one or a short one. I think the one that the most recent one was Jacob Stillwell's tier list.
Yeah, sure. We can go over that.
Obviously, now you have to be careful in the way that you talk about this one because you were S tier.
I was S tier, yeah. I was gonna bring that. I was like, all right, no one's gonna believe my opinion on this one because I'm S tier.
Yeah. Oh, I know right away.
Yeah, hang on, I'll pull this up on so everyone can see what we're talking about as well. So for anyone who doesn't know, or actually, if you want to go ahead and explain it, what we're looking at here.
June 11th, 2024, Jacob Stillwell made his apparently annual tier list post for NAIC, which is interesting to say. I think we can comment. He said it was who he wants to win NAIC, but he posted it after NAIC, so that doesn't make much sense.
Yeah. So I didn't know at all, and he posted this tier list last year as well.
Right.
Yeah, because it's the annual now. I didn't last year. No idea what it was for. I thought it was kind of memey. I thought it was maybe just like at first when I saw it, I was like, oh, it's probably just like a Twitter tier list, just like his favorite yappers ranked based on Twitter. But then he confirmed. I don't remember where he down here. He said, someone asked, lol, what the fuck is this list? And he said, who I wanted to win NAIC. But this was, I guess who he wanted to, but didn't. I mean, I guess that still tracks, I guess, technically. But yeah, I mean, because like when you look at the tier list, a lot of people who are on the tier list are basically known players in the community for the most part, right? These are all names that most people in the community, or a decent amount of people in the community, know, right? Or some form of top player, known player, general yapper on Twitter, I guess is like another category you could put, right?
Absolutely.
But I mean, I guess like the thing to talk about was there was a general amount of people who did not like, or a lot more offense to this year's tier list than last year's from Stillwell.
Yeah, I think I mean, this obviously blew up. I'm looking at 152k views is crazy.
Yeah.
He's got only 204 followers. Yeah.
Yeah, only 29 likes. I feel like that's the view to like ratio is not very good right there.
But yeah, 31 retweets. Well, just gotta like
18 bookmarks. The bookmark to like ratio is kind of crazy though.
I didn't bookmark it. For the record. I think the biggest one was people complaining about Zach Lesage's wife. He said it was the same template that was last year, whether he made it or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, clearly like a sexist comment, which, you hope at the worst, like this is the worst the Pokemon community could be. At that point, obviously we're not going to dig back in the past yet, and hopefully things are better in the forward, but if that's the worst we got, we're making progress. Mm-hmm. But there's obviously people that aren't playing. Christopher Szymanski, clearly. But just a weird, random tier list that popped up, and and took Twitter or X by storm all day.
I don't know. Like, it is like one of those things where I look at it and I'm like, it is like, I mean, I don't like when I think about it, I'm like, all right. I didn't even realize I was on the tier list when I first saw this and saw how people were reacting to it, and people were kind of losing their minds over it a little bit. I was like, I don't get why people are losing their minds over it. You know what I'm saying? Like, the Zach Lesage wife thing can be like one thing that stands out, I guess. But besides that, like I don't know. It's just like, is it weird? I guess like if I think about it hard enough, maybe I'll get to the conclusion, okay, maybe this kind of tier list is a little bit weird. It's just like but like everyone who's on this list, as far as I can tell, like is a name I recognize in the game for something outside of just someone who like shows up and plays Pokemon, right? Like,
Yeah.
And anyone who doesn't, like there is like a couple names on here that stand out that I like. It sounds like this person is from their local area. But besides that, every other name on here is like they have some kind of higher presence in the Pokemon TCG community besides just playing the game locally or at their like local regionals. You know what I'm saying? So it's like they're just ranking a bunch of like I don't know, like you could call them like everyone on this list for the most part qualifies as like some form of like micro celebrity in the Pokemon, like a micro celebrity in like a micro community that is the Pokemon TCG community, right? So they're just like ranking those people on a tier list. Is it a little bit weird? I guess like when I saw this and when I figured out what it was, I was like, I guess it's kind of like because there was some drama I saw on Twitter in just like the streaming space in general where people were like making tier lists of like top streamers, and I was trying to like match this to that and be like, okay, if this is weird, does that make that weird? And if that's weird, then does this become weird? But are either of these things really that weird? Okay, let's say it is weird. Does it really need this much? I feel like putting a spotlight on this and how much of a spotlight people put on this is worse. If it really is weird, which I don't even know if I think it is, it's worse to put this big of a spotlight on it. Because at that point, people see this and they're like, oh, I can just get people's attention if I just do something that's a little bit weird. And now more people would do something like this. But if you just like look at it, see it, and be like, this tier list from Jacob Still was kind of weird, and then just move on, it's like will lead to less of it. I feel like reacting the way people did to this will only lead to more of this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if it's a shit post, it was fantastic. It hit.
It is a shit post, like, right? Like, is it anything more than a shit post? And like, how is this?
Could be their honest feeling. Here's who I want to win. Here's my locals. I like Azul. Whatever.
Yeah, Yuho being the op is. Like that one stands out as so funny to me. My op, Yuho. That's it.
Might be.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, when you phrase it like that, it is a shitpost. And how is this that much more weird or different than other shitposts that people do all the time? I don't know.
Right. But like, I mean, you saw people react right away. You know, people that were in the F tier, like, what the fuck? What the fuck is this? Like, okay, who cares? First and foremost, who cares? Like, what does this affect you?
That's what I'm getting at here. Yeah. Like, even if it is weird, who cares? And I feel like bringing light to this and caring will only lead to more people realizing, oh wait, if I do shit like this, I'll get attention, and that's what people want at the end of the day from this kind of stuff. I feel like most of the time.
Sure.
So I don't know how malicious Stillwell was trying to be. I'm gonna go ahead and make a guess. Probably not at all. He just thought it was funny. To do a tier list like this, and he did one last year, so he's like, all right, I'm gonna do it again. It got attention last year, right? I'm gonna do it again. And the one last year seemed to be, I don't remember exactly, but from everything that I saw from other people bringing light to that, oh wait, Jacob's done this twice, and last year no one cared. It seemed like everyone didn't care last year at all.
Yeah, so it's just people this year need something to bitch about or complain about.
That's what it feels like.
And it probably, I mean, okay, I'll say the names. Obviously, I said Lesage earlier, and then Pokeduel's posted, so some high follower people that get traction are driving traffic to something that doesn't really matter. And also, people respond to a tier list sometimes. It's easy. Well, I mean, you have a redemption for tier lists, and you get judged on it immediately on your takes.
Yeah.
Tier list hit.
I feel like the Pokemon TCG community, and I've been saying this a lot, I think they're just primed to be in outrage at anything. It's like a snowball effect. One person says something, and then immediately everyone else just is like, well, they said it was bad, so it's bad, and then everyone blows up and calls this thing bad, right? I think we saw it literally just with the Alberto thing. And I guess maybe I could ask your take on that, with buying Worlds kits beforehand, paying for people's flights at the rate of $850. Did you have any thoughts on that when you saw that? Did you see that?
I thought, it seems kind of scammy when you think about it on the onset, but if it's legit, you say, all right, I bought my flight, I'm going, here's my hotel, and they want to collect all those kits and fly them home themselves or whatever, if they're going to be out there collecting it, I think that's a pretty good deal. I don't know what the going rate is. I didn't sell my Worlds kit last year, but I know it's more than that. But a lot of people, you know, we've gone through it before, the cycle with the GoFundMes, and people, you know, they spend all their money trying to get to Worlds and don't have the money to actually go to Worlds. Japan was extremely expensive. Hawaii's also extremely expensive.
Yeah.
These aren't really accessible places. So if you can get your money out of it, I didn't think it was a bad deal. It was, I saw it was called out right away by people, and I don't really see the outrage in it. It's the same way as funding anybody else, but you're getting something in return for it instead of GoFundMe, which is, I think, much more. You know, it's the same thing. They'll say, I'm selling my Worlds kit. It's just collecting the people that are going to do the same thing anyways.
Yeah. They're getting like a slightly less, but that's because like Alberto's taking a higher risk, right?
Yeah.
And I did see one comment from someone like, it's not just risk on their end, it's risk on, or not just risk on your end, Alberto, it's risk on other people's end. You're not like an established brick and mortar, but all you have to do is like, if you are like, I think I would be okay with selling this to Alberto, let me do some research, let me ask him for referrals, or like his eBay page or something maybe, right? And then you work it from there, and then you could probably make a pretty good assessment that Alberto is, and from what I can understand from seeing Alberto, you know, make posts in the past stuff, it seems like Alberto's like a pretty reputable buyer seller, right?
Yeah.
So but you might not think that because you're not in my position where you've seen him in the Pokemon community for as long as I have. So you'd maybe want to do some research. But I think after you do some research, you'll probably find, oh, he seems like a pretty reputable seller. So once you like remove that from the equation, what are people mad about? And I think it's just the Pokemon community is just primed to anything that's like neutral. I don't want to say we, because I don't do it. The Pokemon community turns it into a negative. Anything that's neutral, they take it and they're like, all right, how can I make this negative? And then they make it negative. And then as soon as like one person does it or like two people do it, it's like, it feels like the majority of, and I will say it is just people who are on Twitter in the Pokemon community as well. The majority of people who are in the Pokemon community who are on Twitter, or maybe not the majority, but the people who care enough to say something latch on to this thing. Oh, it's like, oh, they see someone say it's negative, so now I think it's negative. I'm going to say it's negative. And then they just snowball it, right? And then there's like the people who are on Twitter who are just neutral and don't care. Even if they disagree with them, they're just not going to say anything and let it happen. But the people who like to push the negative narrative around things that are maybe slightly negative or just neutral, they always are trying to push the negative narrative around things. I feel like this is kind of similar, where it feels like this is like a big nothing burger. Same thing with the Alberto. The Alberto selling like it's like at the very worst this is like slightly negative to neutral. It's like slightly negative to neutral, this like in the Alberto thing, but like the Pokemon community is so primed to just want to take anything to the extreme negative if there is some what is the word I'm looking for, some narrative they can push on it.
Absolutely.
Which I think is what we need to try and change. I think as a community we need like, and this is like a really good example that we need to just like push to change that and just like not care as much and kind of take things as they are into being, okay, maybe it's a little bit negative. Most of the time these things are neutral, and just like let them go. If the more you interact with them, I feel like the more they're going to happen, because people are going to be like, oh wait, I can just, you know, get this reaction out of it.
Yeah, especially these posts that don't drive a narrative, right? There's no outcome that comes from these things that better, I mean, unless it's like Alberto actually is frauding people, or this post is actually in some way, you know, sexist, racist, whatever.
Yeah.
If we're not driving something, it's just literally yapping, right? So, I mean, it makes it's words in the wind.
Yeah, one of this one is a shit post, and the other one was seemingly actually a pretty reasonable deal to help people get the Worlds. Like, it's just
how
business.
else do you reach out? Yeah, how else do you reach out? This is the biggest platform that you have. You know, you can troll Discords or whatever, but yeah. Actually, a decent post, and he's putting himself out there too. If you say I'm going to fund you, and 8-9 people do it and don't, well, we all know who you are, and so you're canceled immediately for that, right? Like you don't pay up or whatever. So, yeah, not bad.
Yeah. We'll have to see what I'm curious to see where the next one goes. Like if these things continue to happen or not, but. We'll see what the next thing that Pokemon, they have to be like a term, Pokemon Twitter, Poke Twitter, I don't know. like that. What Poke Twitter gets mad about next? I'll be interested.
Yeah, it's like Facebook, Pokemon Facebook. I don't have Facebook, so I've never exposed myself to that, fortunately. But all right. Well, the next there's a kind of a cluster of close things, or we can talk about. I've got Goof if he's still in chat. If you want to talk about the best of 2 versus best of 3, or just the world stuff in general. The guy we're gonna have on. The numbers, a lot of discourse about the numbers of qualifiers, and I think there's something else.
Yeah, Goof's in chat, so if Goof wants to come on, let's get Goof in here. Goof, I don't know if I have you added on Discord. I might though. If it's just Goof, I might not actually.
It might be George.
Oh, I do have him. Yeah, I'm gonna add you, Goof.
So for people, we're going to talk about George is going on to play Lorcana, and they have a best of 2 structure. They've had 2 regionals so far, and Goof's one of the best players in the game. I think he's already qualified for whatever they call Worlds at this point. And he also played Pokemon last year and made Worlds pretty early in the season. And then before that, he played Pokemon Unite, and they got kind of screwed by the structure. So the guy's a gamer. He's one of the best overall, just gaming players right now. And he's really sharp and has good insight. So we'll see what his takes are on the best of 2 versus best of 3.
Dude, I can't add George. Why can't I add you? Maybe we're not friends. Add friends to DM.
Oh.
Add friend. Okay, I have you added as a friend.
Okay.
So accept the friend request, George, and I can add you to the. Yeah, I'm definitely we'll have to build out the Discord server a little bit more, so then we can just like get people on the call that way next time.
I think like a waiting room, like on the streams, on the sub stream when.
This is replacing the sub stream. So until we are done with it. All right, let's see. All right, it'll probably disconnect us here for a second. Again, let's see. Oh, maybe not actually. Oh, I can just add him like that. Okay, maybe it's not as hard as I thought. I think I made it more difficult last time than I had to.
George, you there?
George is like
Is my camera okay?
Sure.
Yeah, it looks good. I was gonna say George is like Sage and Park Light. Like he does it all at a pretty high level, but yeah, he's an up and coming Sage and Park
for sure, but I appreciate it. Okay,
right.
We're talking about best of 2, right? And there's been some new Pokemon Worlds format changes. I don't know about them because I've been playing Lorcana, so you guys have to catch me up on that. Then we can help you out from there.
Azul can fill you in on that. I don't really care since I'm not going, but
yeah, I mean we could start with just like best of 2 because like you just played in a big Lorcana tournament, right?
Yeah, there's been 2 large Lorcana tournaments, like the regional sized events. One was 2,000 players, and the second one was unfortunately capped at 1,000 because of venue capacity. So it's 2 large best of 2 events. My background opinion on best of 2 has always been that Pokemon would benefit from it. Because like I really do not enjoy playing the clock in Pokemon. It's one of the reasons I stopped playing the game. Like I was always playing Gardevoir, and I always felt like incentivized to do weird stuff, and I didn't enjoy the aspect of playing the clock. I played one stream game in my Pokemon career, and I won best of 1 essentially against Mew. My opponent played quite slow as well. I don't think it was my fault only, but this is something I've experienced a lot in like my path to my first invite in Pokemon. So always have been this big proponent of best of 2. And then we did it in Lorcana, and it's not so great.
no.
Apparently, there's this game Netrunner that did best of 2 first a while ago, and what happened in that game is even though there was no incentive for winning 2-0, people would agree to only play one game. So, because when you're playing best of 1 tournaments, you want to be the guy that's on the if you imagine like the curve of players. Based on their score in the tournament, you need to be a far outlier to top cut, right? And so it actually mathematically benefited people to agree to a 2-for-1, which they called it in that game, where you would agree to play one game. So every set would push you further to the outlier side, right? Because you're favored in your going first game, and you're unfavored in your going second game, often in card games, not always, but in most meta games and card games. And that is going to pull you towards the center, going 1-1. Yep. If you want to be the guys that are the far outlier, going 2-0 is very important. So even without a bonus point, there is this incentive to, I mean, as in a bonus point for going 2-0, there's this incentive to agree to only play one game of the match. In Lorcana right now, we have 3 points for winning, 3 points for winning one game, 3 points for winning a second game, and then a bonus point if you went 2-0. So that's the Lorcana format right now. When they originally presented it to us, it was 3-3 and a full game's worth of points. A 3-point bonus for going 2-0. Obviously, that doesn't work because then you're always doing the 2-for-1 strategy, like the Netrunner game that we discussed. So what's happened now is you have this 3-3-1 thing, and I'm just going to tell you what happened in my first tournament. My first large Lorcana tournament. I went 5-0, 10-0 in games. It's quite the feat to do that. Like, you know, so it's not like really bad. But what happened next was I was incentivized to tie or intentionally split my next 4 games. So 4 rounds of the tournament, I decided to just split, and that had me destined for around the 11th seed going into day 2, which is not great.
64 people, right?
There's a catch here that I have to present as well. In Lorcana, day 2 is a 64-player single elimination cut. So how high I place doesn't matter that much. Yeah. Obviously, you guys wouldn't have that problem if you did in Pokemon. That's just an aside. There's a lot of intentional splitting. I think what you'll see, though, however, if you adopt it in Pokemon, is this idea that people are playing the 2-for-1s. As soon as they're in trouble in the tournament, especially, like as soon as your seeding is not looking too good, you're going to start accepting the 2-for-1, right? Because you need 2 wins. And then it's just going to be back to the coin flip deciding the game like it would in best of 1, if that makes sense. If you guys have any questions, I'm open to them.
When you say split, so after you were 5-0, 10-0 in games, so if you win a best of 2 set 2-0, you get 7 points, right? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and if you win 1, they win 1, you both get 3 points?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
So you were saying once you were 5-0, 10-0 in games, you and your next 4 opponents just agreed to each win a game?
There's a bit up in there, yeah, but that was the proper thing for us to do. It was what we were incentivized to do, to land around the 11th or 12th seed. That wouldn't be enough in Pokemon. Because your cuts. But for making day 2 or whatever in Pokemon, that would kind of be how it worked.
And so overall, after that experience, again, then day 2 goes right to cut, right? So overall, after that experience, do you still want best of 2 for Pokemon like you did in the past? Or do you feel like it's not the solution, but you still think best of 3 needs to be improved?
I think no matter how you apply it to Pokemon, there's going to be this problem with people accepting the 2-for-1 deal as soon as their record is not great, right? So imagine me and you were in trouble. We have pretty mid records in Pokemon, and a 1-1 is virtually going to eliminate us, right? Mm-hmm. For the rest of the tournament, from that point on, when we sit down, we have to use some like coded language such as, if you beat me in game 1, I'll concede to you in game 2. And then you would say, I'll do the same for you. And then it's like the gentleman's agreement that you have in round when you're 6-2 or whatever, we can't tie this game. But it's essentially we can't 1-1 this game. And it starts much earlier in the tournament because of the way the system works. Does that all make sense?
So the gentleman's happened way sooner, and overall you're just playing way less Pokemon.
Yeah, your gentleman's happens way sooner because you like a 1-1 as soon as a 1-1 is not great for your record, like as a competitive player, you'd have to start accepting these like very early in the tournament.
Yeah.
It doesn't even really ever make sense mathematically to not do it, to be honest. But maybe there's like something like you're avoiding variance in the early tournament when your opponents are weaker by not doing it, but it's really you're always incentivized to do this, play one game and agree to give the person both things. So I think the best of 2 format is a total failure, and that's hard for me to say because Tord is someone who always advocates for it. I thought this guy must be right because he's the one. He's the one always winning the best of 1s in Pokemon. He must be right.
I mean, he played Dragon Ball at NAIC, so I don't know how right. Sometimes he's wrong. Sometimes
I'm just saying he's always the one like winning from like supposedly winning from the clock, right? And he's advocating for best of 2, and then I played it and it's not great. That's a summary of my point, I guess.
Okay, all right. I'm curious, and so from your because I've had to like make my own. I've had to come up with my own thought process on these kind of things and be like, okay, we either need to drastically change best 2 out of 3, we need to go to best of 1, or one of the things, or like the way that the game is developed, the way the developers make the cards and make Pokemon has to drastically change, or do we just have to be comfortable with some decks effectively being a best of one? And I've come to the conclusion that I'm okay with that. I'm okay with Gardevoir being a best of one. Like, I'm okay when I sit down against someone, I flip over my Comfy and they flip over their Ralts. I'm like, okay, we're playing a best of one. Probably, most times, right? And I've become comfortable with that. And I think that's fine to exist in the game personally, where the Lugias, the Raging Bolts, they'll play their 3 games in most sets. Maybe there will have to be an early concession on one side or another. They won't be able to finish 3 full games, obviously. But I'm comfortable with, my opponent flips over a Snorlax and Quadlax. I'm like, all right, we're playing a best of one. I'm okay with that. And I think that's it. My current take is that I think that's fine in the game. I'm curious if you think, all right, if we're saying it's best of 3 in Pokemon, though, do you think that needs to be resolved? Do you think we should get to the point where we're playing 3 games of Pokemon with every single deck through an adjustment in best 2 out of 3? Or the card game makers, is it on them to actually make a difference? But I guess like they won't really ever do that because Japan is best of 1. So that's like a conflict there. With will that ever happen?
I'm not sure what the answer is, but from my perspective, your perspective is definitely one that's extremely. You have this understanding that allows you to be like. This is like some high level stuff you're saying. Like you're sitting down and you're expecting a best of 1. No, most people who go to a Pokemon tournament, like you said, the MLB versus T-ball or whatever. The T-ball guys don't understand they're sitting down for a best of 1, right? And when their opponent starts shuffling a little extra long in game 2 just to make sure they've got the best of 1 locked up, right? Which certainly happens. It's like impossible to enforce rules against. People get really upset, and that leads to a bad tournament experience. So I'm not really sure what the answer is from that perspective. I know when I was like refinement, level ball, refinement, level ball, like doing that stuff in a tournament, I didn't feel good about myself doing that, even if it was completely within the rules. Yeah. And even if it was like mathematically optimal, right? Like I'm thinning, it thins like 0.1% advantage, right? To sequence in this way, but it takes 60 extra seconds or a minute and a half extra time. Like it's optimal for me to do it. So it's not, you can't argue against someone doing that, because thinning your deck before you refine again, it's like, if it's providing you an advantage in the game, of course you're allowed to do it, right? You're taking legal actions to increase the odds of things going your way. So, but even though I knew that, and I knew I was increasing my odds of hitting the card I wanted by thinning first before doing my second refinement or whatever, and so on, I still felt dirty doing it. And I think that's like something that Pokemon needs to take care of in some way. Not my feelings personally, but this overarching idea that you're having these situations where one person feels like they're being slow played within the rules, and there's just this awful kind of experience for that person.
Well, and to add on to that, I think, that's kind of the thought that people get, okay, Guardy might be a best of 1 deck, but not everyone's cut out to play Guardy. And so you get into situations where you're up, and then you start seeing slow play, that players that aren't skilled enough to like actually just play at the regular pace and use out their proper actions, and you start seeing slow play and against somebody who doesn't know how to call it out. Somebody calls it out, now you're getting more judge calls, and all this stuff is compounding because we're trying to create a different kind of system in the gameplay versus if everyone was trying to get 3 games in and playing fast. And that leads to making mistakes on that end too. You play fast, you come up with mistakes, you don't draw a prize, you flip over a card, whatever. So either way, you're kind of on both edges, incentivizing bad players on a game that's huge right now, the biggest it's ever been.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I've come to, I don't know, like I mentioned this yesterday on my stream as well. I don't know if I actually ever had a strong opinion on this, but I've come to the take now where I think we shouldn't have any extra time to check our prize cards. I think it should be, you get just normal time, maybe like 10 extra seconds on your first search, but that's it. And I don't even think I ever had a strong take on it, on like, no, I think we should have that extra minute and a half to check our prize cards on our first search, or whatever it feels like they're allotting to us currently, because it's not a written rule, obviously. But now that I've kind of thought about it, seen like the general reaction from the player base and people just wanting to play more Pokemon, and I want to play more Pokemon too. It's like, as a competitive player, if I get to take a minute to check my prize cards, I'm going to take that minute. But I think the rule, because it's one of those things where it's like, I know the guy across from me, or I know Tord or Isaiah Bradner 2 tables down from me is taking the extra minute to check their prize cards, extra 30 seconds, whatever. So even if my opponent across from me is not going to do it, I know I have to do it so I can compete with them, right? It's not even about my opponent.
Well, how would you feel about this solution? You make tiebreaker 1 total number of games won.
What do you mean?
So your tiebreaker 1, instead of your game win percentage or your match win percentage, your opponent's match win percentage, tiebreaker 1 would be the number of games you've won in the tournament, which would incentivize you to play more games.
I like that.
Okay, but how do you see? One thing with that though is like, when you sit down across from your opponent, it's like, okay, if I 1-0 you or you 1-0 me, we're gonna make it a 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, I was just an idea. I thought I had it all figured out with best of 2, man, and then they put me in the washing machine at this Lorcana event. It's like, wait, I'm tying 4 times for 11th seed? What's happening here? So I'm just trying to come up with some stuff. We've discussed similar stuff in Lorcana now, like, what do we do from here? We thought we solved it, and it's actually cooked. Like, I don't think it's good at all, what we've done. So I feel like that always happens when you try to shake up the card game rules. Like, you create, like, 10 more problems that you didn't foresee.
Yeah, which is, like, actually really interesting because it's like, I think TPCI and the Pokemon Company know a little bit more than we give them credit for sometimes when we try and like logic stuff out and like, oh, this would be better, but then we like it goes a step further and it's like, oh, wait a second, this isn't as good as we thought it was. Let's go back to where TPCI has us right now. But it doesn't mean there can't be improvements. It's just like trying to find the right improvements. And then I mean, if TPCI doesn't know about them, trying to get them out there and get them known as much as possible. I mean, I think, yeah, some way to make best of 3 feel like you're playing more matches of Pokemon or more games of Pokemon, I think is good. The question is just like, what is the correct answer? I think for sure. And the best of 2, switching to best of 2 does not sound, after you just breaking down all of that, does not sound particularly enjoyable. I mean, I hate best of 1 personally, so I never want to go back to best of 1 if we can avoid
I think
it.
you brought it up. You brought it up well, saying, you know, the people that designed the game are in Japan, and they designed it for best of 1.
Well, I don't know if that is 100% true though. Like, they do play best of, but their Japan Championships day 2 was best 2 out of 3.
Yeah. Okay.
They do create control cards and control interactions. Are they just designing the game? Like obviously they have an idea of, like, I don't know how much they think, okay, we have to make sure this deck can win a game in 25 minutes because it's best of 1 25 minutes in Japan. I don't know how much they think about that, or if they're like, just like, okay, what are the cool interactions? How can we make cool decks and cool cards? I don't know how much they're thinking about best of 1 versus best of 3. I'm sure to some extent, obviously, but even then, I'm not sure, because like, then why would they allow best of 3 to be in day 2 of the Japan Championships? And Top Cut was best 2 out of 3. Obviously, everyone thinks it's more competitive. The competitive Japanese players want best 2 out of 3. Not all competitive players in America want best 2 out of 3. But the competitive players in Taiwan, I know they want best 2 out of 3 as well. Or that's what like people in my chat who are from there have said. It's like, we want best 2 out of 3. We're playing best of 1 right now. It kind of sucks. Or maybe not Taiwan. I think Taiwan plays best of 1 as well, but it's Singapore. It's tough. I feel like best of 3 is better than best of 1, but we can definitely work on best of 3.
What's the day 2 time limit for the best of 3?
They have 50. I believe they get 50 minutes.
Is it 50? Okay.
Yeah.
So, to my knowledge, the guy who placed 4th or like 3rd, 4th in the Lorcana tournament, who won one of the Mickeys, he, for the last 3 rounds of Swiss, was playing the it's not against the rules. He was playing the 2-for-1. So he was facing elimination, and so he was like playing de facto best of 1, right? And it is my belief that you're gonna be playing best of 1 if you play best of 2. I don't even think, like, you're gonna play best of 2 as long as you want, like, feel like doing it, and then as soon as it's time to get serious and make sure you're earning enough points to cut or whatever, you're gonna be effectively playing best of 1. So I mean, I don't even know if there's a difference between best of 2 and best of 1 anymore, besides that imagination that it feels good to be playing best of 2. That's how bad I think the situation is. So. It's 3 or 1, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Because then you actually conclude to like a match winner. There's always a match winner, which is something that just like, I think for me personally, just neutrally feels bad. Like if you're looking at best of 2, it's like there's no match winner sometimes. That just feels bad. Like you put that on stream, and as a viewer, that's even unsatisfying, right? You see,
I agree with that as well.
You see whoever wins game 1, it's like, well, they either win or they tie. Like, and now I don't even get to watch the comeback happen, right? Like,
yeah, agreed.
So from a viewer's perspective, it's also best of 2 is just bad as well. I mean, if it solved enough of like the problems with best 2 out of 3, I guess I could come around on it outside of the viewer's experience, but.
Well, look at how many internationals we've had, stream matches that have gone to time. They get the extra time that have gone to first prize or whatever, like turns in time.
Well, I mean, we could talk about that, I guess, like for a second.
Like that's crazy.
Like,
we're adding 15. We're adding at 30 minutes and still getting the same issues. So
there's 2 things you could look at there. One, if you're, I've been using Stefan as an example a lot recently. Love Stefan. I was actually, it would have been cool to see him get that 3rd win, of course, 3rd NAIC win. But you look at that finals match, and Stefan just played way worse than Hedrick overall. Time management, made the big error by benching Manaphy. So there's like, Stefan just played way worse in general. So like, if we take that match specifically, we could look at it and be like, okay, Stefan could have just done more and done better. Could you make an argument that maybe people should be enforced to play faster in general across the board? Maybe because you look at like Stefan versus Kato, and they're both playing. You know, it's Guardy Mirror. Was it Stefan versus Kato? It was Stefan versus Kato. Yeah, both Guardy Mirror. Kato. I haven't really fully watched Kato's side of the thing where he got the 2 prize penalty for slow play. But you know, they're both playing kind of slow. It's a Guardy Mirror, long game. Should they just be forced to be playing faster across the board? Should the overall pace of play be forced to be faster?
Should stay the same.
Or
on stream or not, should be the same time.
Yeah, across the board, should everyone just be forced to be playing Pokemon faster? I wouldn't be against that. But like in situations like that, it's like, all right, Stefan obviously should have just played and Stefan knows that as a competitor, right? Stefan should have just played better, right? If he wanted to give himself a higher chance of winning that match specifically. So I guess like which one do we think is like, because obviously it's not a problem if the player's just playing poorly, but do we think it's enough of a problem to the point where it's like, okay, maybe the time between actions should be 10 seconds instead of 15 seconds in Pokemon, which I'm personally like, I'm not against that as an idea. Like I said, I think we should get away with the 1.5 to even 2 minutes that players are getting to like check their prize cards. I think that should be done away with. I think you should have no extra time to check your prize cards, or very little, and that should be enforced across the board. And one of those things would be like making sure the community knows that you don't get any extra time to check your prize cards anymore, and that have to come from, you know, there have to be like some kind of statement from TPCI to kind of enforce that initially, I feel like, or at least TOs at tournaments. And I'd be fine with that. But as long as it exists.
Do you think start with like the person being like, Judge, he's taking too long on his first search? If we do that, like, it's just it seems so difficult. Like,
well, I think if you just like,
people are always going to push the limit of that first search.
Yeah, I think if you just completely eliminate it, if it's like you get 15 seconds per search, like sometimes they can be like a little bit longer. So if you go over like 30 seconds on your first search, that's when it's like you should probably call a judge.
Yeah, that sounds fair.
Which would be easy to enforce.
Yeah, I don't think this would be because
people will call judges right away. Yeah. And once everyone's calling a judge, you'll be like, oh shit, I gotta.
Yeah, once the penalties start rolling, because like in the middle,
grab the card I'm looking for and get out of here.
Yeah, because it would be like the same with anything, right? Currently, past that first search in the middle of the game, everyone's expected to play at a reasonable pace of play. You just enforce that reasonable pace of play on the first search of the turn as well. Yeah. So I'm for that. As long as it exists, though, as long as I can take that minute, I'm going to as a competitive player. But I do think they should just get rid of it.
And it's weird though to think on the other side, like you should be incentivized for knowing your deck list, right? And quick searching and being able to look real quick and know like the cards you need. And like that's a skill in the game that should be incentivized. You don't get that by getting to sit there for 3 minutes and write down one by one, write down one thing, search back through, write down the second one. You're losing that skill. Like I know exactly like I'll count the energies. I'll grab my card and I'll count maybe the 1 or 2 cards that I think I need the next 2 or 3 turns. Yeah. And maybe 1 card I need at the end. That's it. And it's quick. So I'm actually at a disadvantage for being really good at prize checking.
More efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't think, and a big thing would be, I don't think the skill goes anywhere. I think if you remove the prize checking thing, the skill ceiling isn't dropping. It's probably just different.
About the same.
It's like a different skill is being applied for prize checking.
Right.
I know a couple people way back in the day. I don't know if anyone still does this, but they could look through their deck once. It would be reasonably slow, but they'd be able to find all 6 of their prize cards, or 5 to 6 on one pass through. So it's definitely possible.
During COVID, I would build a deck of energies, and I'd have 11, 11, 8, 8, 9, whatever it added up to, and go through and just count them, and just practice like counting your cards and knowing what was prized. It was when you're sitting at the desk doing nothing is a fun little game, and it translated really well.
Yeah.
I remember I was checking my prizes and Henry Brand was like, "Why are you playing all gold? You can't tell the difference between a nest ball and ultra ball." I'm like, "Well, I can tell the difference from the hollow pattern." He's like, "Prove it," and I did it. It's like that's a skill, right?
Yeah.
So it'd be fun to be incentivized for knowing your deck list, knowing your cards, and that would also incentivize the full art supporters or the regular arts and all this stuff, and knowing your deck and being more skilled with it, and that helps with time efficiency as well.
Yeah, I remember when I actually first met Sam Chen way back. His deck had there was as many different artworks as possible in his deck for prize checking. It was like all over the place. I remember asking. I think I asked him about it afterwards. I was like, "Why do you play the different artworks of everything.
That makes it harder. That's crazy.
I swear that would make it harder for me.
Yeah.
Well, he said it helped him. He said it helped him to have the different artwork, like different artwork switches and stuff like that, so he could realize when something was missing.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think, yeah. I mean, it definitely seems like no skill. We're not losing skill by removing the time to check prize cards. And I guess, I mean, if you tie that in with just like, I think like, because like the thing is like, even for like general pace of play currently, I'd say probably on average, the average player throughout a game doesn't slow play, but probably should receive a warning, like in a match of Pokemon. At some point in a game of Pokemon, there's a point where they probably play too slow. So if like just the general overall idea in the community is that people need to be playing faster, or it's like the pace needs to be up from where we currently are, becomes what the norm is, then everyone will start playing faster as well. So it's almost like a community-wide thing to a little bit.
Maybe a slow play warning's worth like half a ding on your record.
Yeah, maybe it doesn't hit as hard, but they're giving out more often.
Right.
Yeah, I could see that as well. That would be like a good way to start enforcing things as well. It's like warning, double prize penalty instead of warning, double prize penalty.
Yeah, there's always a discussion people have about chess clocks and stuff too, but it doesn't seem viable, the idea of chess clock, because like even in Lorcana there's triggers that happen on your opponent's turn and that are going to require like several back and forths of the clock. So I don't think that I do have the worst experiences in Lorcana though. I play quite fast. I practice a lot of Lorcana, and I've had, when we were playing the best of 3 format, I had some games where, man, I swear I used like 5 minutes of my imaginary chess clock and my opponent used like 45. So that's like the solution you guys have for Pokemon too. That seems pretty fair. The idea of like just the judges being a little more on top of stuff and issuing slow play warning seems really good.
Yeah, and also players. I think I mean a lot of players, especially newer players, they're afraid to call a judge, right? They don't want to be the bad guy. It's awkward, yada yada yada. But that's also like something that needs to be probably a little bit more instilled in the community. It's like, yeah, call a judge whenever you feel like things are getting out of hand. I'm actually curious with the So is chess clocks like been a big talk in Lorcana then?
We were having in set 1. I didn't play set 1, but apparently there was like a lot of games best of oneing like Pokemon in set 1. And then we're just having general like the blue decks, which are the ramp decks. I don't know if you've ever played like, do you have any experience with other card games where like, you know, there's the decks that have to set a lot of stuff up and then do their thing. We're having trouble finishing their set. So those are the blue ones in Lorcana. Yeah, the blue decks we're not finishing a lot. And I've had some games go to time even when I'm like 5 minutes on my clock. So yeah, people talked about like my imaginary clock, but people have talked a lot about chess clocks. It's not really viable because like imagine you escape rope in Pokemon, right? Your opponent makes a decision on your turn,
and
then you forget to click the clock, and then you lost your set because you ran out of time. Your opponent doesn't warn you that you didn't press the clock right, and then you never get the clock back after an escape rope or something, and you're just doomed or something. I feel like that would happen more than it would benefit the game, so it doesn't really work, I think.
Yeah, it's not like chess where it's like a tempo, right? Play clock. Like there's a tempo to it in chess to use a chess clock. But in Pokemon, it's like, yeah, I play Iono. They're still shuffling their Iono. Mine's already on the bottom of my deck. And then it's like, whose clock is supposed to be running? If it is theirs, and you're constantly pressing the button back and forth in the middle of your turn. So I don't think it makes sense. I mean, if two people sat down and played a game with chess clocks and it seemed more feasible, then maybe my opinion would come around. But
I'm a big believer that the top tables should be played on, well, we have live now, but if we had a really good client, I'm a big believer that I'd be okay with the top tables being digital or whatever. Like, I feel that would be fine. Like, Lorcana, we don't have anything either. It's a sore spot right now. But,
do you want to touch on that real quick?
We lost our online client. That kind of sucks. I mean, there's not really a place for it on a Pokemon stream, but you know, now every time they do, it's a lesson for Pokemon for sure. Because now every time this company announces anything since they canceled the unofficial online client, every time there's an announcement, the whole chat is just negative, asking like when they're getting their online client, you know. So like they've created this atmosphere where they can't announce anything without negativity, which is just cursed, I guess, for them.
Is there an official one coming out or no?
No, they haven't said anything. That's what everyone's waiting. That's exactly the point I'm getting at, right? So everyone's waiting for this official client announcement because they shut down the unofficial one, and every time they're announcing anything that's not that, the whole chat is just like cooking them the whole time, right? And so like the set 5 announcement was today. It's supposed to be hype, but instead of it being hype, the whole chat's like, where's our client, you know, Pixel Born Forever, like this type of stuff in the chat. And they've just created that environment for themselves. I don't know if they had much of a choice with Disney or whatever, but man,
they let it go for 4 seasons though.
Yeah, and then just random the assumption would be that because they had their thing ready to go or something, right? But I kind of had the feeling that wasn't the case as well.
So Azul, the client was really great. I mean, better than you know, PTCGO or Live combined, and you got all the cards, so you could get on and play and do whatever you wanted. And it went on, and the Patreon, I think he donated all the money from the Patreon.
Supposedly he was donating
server fees, and then who knows. And then they just shut it down, and I think there's 4 days left before it's over. And so, like, I was excited in this downtime to go down to the Dallas regional, the next one, Fort Worth, I guess technically. And we can bring in the next topic, deck cost. If you want to play on camera, you have to proxy 1,000 cards and try all these different things.
Fair.
Or to pay for decks that Lorcana decks are extremely expensive. I mean, there's some budget decks, but I bought the Steel Silver. It was $600.
Yeah, what is the average? What is a tier 1 deck cost in Lorcana right now?
The deck that just won is around $700, unfortunately. Yeah, it's quite expensive. I mean, there's the upsides of it as a player. Like, I don't want to promote Lorcana too much on your channel, but I travel to set championships. And like for like a League Cup equivalent tournament, the top 4 players got cards worth like $500 to $1,000 because of the secondary market. So I mean, the cards being expensive is good in some ways, bad in some ways. It's really bad for getting people into the game for sure. Yeah. So
yeah, I feel like that's. I mean, that's obviously gonna be a big part if you want the game to grow, right? Because like, I think I've told this story before, but I wanted to go to a Flesh and Blood regional, and me and Caleb were looking up. There's like one that happened in Vegas, and we were looking up decks, and it was like $1,000 for like the cheapest good deck or something like that. We're like, well, we're not going to this. If we could spend like $200 to get a deck, that's like, because we don't want to show up with like some tier 7 deck, right? We want to show up with like maybe
that game
a
is
tier
cool
2, tier 3.
Too, right?
Yeah.
Like,
so
Flesh and Blood, I thought that game was really cool, but then I found out also that it's very expensive, and
yeah. So it didn't happen. Yeah, I think that's like a really big part. That's why Pokemon's so good. But yeah, the next topic you want to bring up then, Grant, was
who would have been our second scheduled guest, a guy who got a lot of flack, Vito Comedy. He unfortunately couldn't make it, but he brought up a tweet that said a budget TCG deck should cost roughly 1,000. A really good deck should cost 200 to 300.
I mean, roughly 100, right? You said roughly 1,000.
roughly 100.
Yeah.
Well, I might still been thinking about it, Lorcana. There is every reason to maintain a thriving economy for your game cards. Players benefit from their cards holding market value rather than simply being worthless cardboard. And there's a lot of things to take away from that. I think the community really went in on it pretty quick.
I feel like, before you go any further, this is what I was already talking about. Yeah. The Pokemon community is primed to be hyper negative about everything. And now I'm not saying his post is justified, but I think it's like, I was like, I wonder what the next one is going to be. And apparently this was the next one that I was talking about. Where it's like the next Poke Twitter negative, what's it called? I feel like
you
people
guys
just don't have discussions.
Though, have like alt art Pokemon for like these tournament rewards, right? Like the prizes.
Yeah.
Like the One Piece system or whatever that Lorcana is copying. You guys should definitely be benefiting from that. If you make a custom alt art that's only available from a tournament of a Pokemon, you're basically salarying your players by proxy, right? And that's just too good.
Even just a stamp. Like I think so many people in the Pokemon TCG community, if there was just if you take the regional promo that we get and put a stamp on it that says day 2 for everyone who makes day 2, that would like solve so many grievances like in the Pokemon community right now. Just TPCI giving us something, and then a lot of people feel bummed out when they make day 2, to get it. If we just got like a day 2 stamped regional promo, that would be sick. I don't think they would ever go as far as like, the thing is like, it's weird for TPCI and what they do here because of Japan. Because Japan makes the cards. We don't get to make anything ourselves besides like stamping cards. That's it. So we kind of have to work off of what Japan does. But Japan does get like their own tournament promos. I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't see why we couldn't just take those and get English versions of those as well. But I think just like day 2 promos, top X promos is what a lot of people want. I think it makes sense. It's so weird that Pokemon doesn't do the promo stuff the way every other card game does. Don't do it to the. You don't have to do it to the extent that all the other games do it, but do it to some extent for sure.
Yeah, George, if you want to take off, you're more than welcome to.
Okay, thank you guys for having me. I miss you both very much, and I hope to see you soon at a Pokemon event or something. Bye, guys.
Love you, buddy.
See you, bud.
Yeah, the great Goof GG.
Yeah.
I did want to. Yeah, I think the stamps should be so easy to do.
I know.
Look at what it's taken off with the prize packs, and now they brought back the reverse holo with the embedded play Pokemon thing in it. These cards are like that's all anyone wants, and they're $5 or $6 or whatever, versus 13 cents, which incentivizes you to go to locals and get the packs, open the packs, trade the packs, sell the packs, and get the cards you want to play. I've recently gone to full min rare mostly, unless there's a card I want, like the Tatsuguri. I got the alt art because it's a cool card, right?
Yeah.
But back when during COVID, I was like, I'm buying up golds. My Lugia was fully blinged out. It was fun for me. It was just a project. Like during the day, it's like, oh, I'll buy this or whatever.
Piece it all together.
Yeah, or like urns when Battle Styles came out. Urns were like $2 or whatever, gold urns. I'm like, well, I'm going to buy these up. Then Single Strike Lugia became a thing, and it's like, well, I already have them, so good to go. But as far as the price of the decks, I did I wanted to hear his response because some of the comments he made seemed logical, and some of them didn't make much sense.
Did he delete most of his tweets or all of them, or?
He ended up deleting the main tweet, and it was mostly probably, and like we were talking about earlier, a lot of people just like to piggyback on the comments and say things. Some of the things were forgot Pokemon fans are insufferable, financially illiterate children.
Wait, what is his Twitter? Because I'm gonna pull it up so everyone can look at it. Oh,
Veto comedy. There's nothing bad on there, but it'll take you a while to get there.
Okay, there we
go. And I want to hear his take on the fiscal his fiscal take on the whole thing. And one of the replies he kept saying was like depreciation of your cards when you buy them, and also like, are you financially, fiscally disciplined? Well, the kind of law I practice is kind of fiscal, but I just did a real quick, it took me 2 seconds to do this. Looked at the LAIC, which was post-rotation new decks.
Yep.
And the price of them today versus the price of the same deck NAIC. Obviously, there's different cards in there. Now, I'll just give you a few numbers here. Guardy today, LAIC list price was $25, or is.
Wait, so at
NAIC.
At
this
LAIC.
Is from Limitless.
Okay,
yeah,
okay. Yeah.
LAIC is $25. At NAIC this year, $43. Now that $25, if we're going back in time, it's actually increased in price. The basic cards in a Guardy deck, which I think Stellar, 43 for Guardy. I think the post was $100 to play it if you buy the arena deck or whatever they're calling them now, plus whatever else you need. But this is just single prices, obviously from Limitless. Miraidon, $44 the list then. 97 today. I think that's because of the Iron Hands. Chin Pao 72 to 96. Zard 65 to 77. And then here's the big one. Hands, which didn't have hands, it's just Future Box, 38 to 91. So if you look at the inflation rate, 3 and whatever percent, just buying the cheapest deck is still inflationary good. So these cheap decks, or whatever he's saying, budget decks, these are the main decks. Guardy's a main deck. Miraidon was a main deck at LAIC.
Yeah, it was a good pick for NAIC as well, actually.
Yeah. So I wanted to get his take on the point of it, but obviously the community took a very salty turn on him by saying, comedy in your username and a blue check mark. Right? Oh, it should be accessible. I really wanted to hear what he had to say. I don't know what your thoughts on the take in general is.
Well, I feel like, I guess like one thing I'll start with, and this is like, I don't know, because I feel like I like to go out of my way to try and help people become, I don't know, better people is a way to put it, I guess, to an extent. But like a lot of people in the Pokemon community, you know, a lot of them are younger. But like people need to definitely learn in the Pokemon community how to have a conversation instead of just, and that's kind of like internet culture in general, I guess, a little bit, instead of just, I don't know, someone like says something you disagree with and then you just kind of shit on them instead of being like, okay, you disagree with me. Here's why I disagree with you. Help me understand why you think you're right, and I'll try to help you understand why I think I'm right, right? But the Pokemon community, I feel like, is really bad at doing that. Like even this tweet that you linked in the Discord here from Shining Espeon is, Pokemon friends, please stop replying to and quote tweeting this transparent bait. This isn't a sincere attempt at conversation. This is a dipshit trying to piss y'all off to get some cheap engagement revenue. Don't play their game. My question would just be like, is it? I don't know. Because like, did anyone actually try and have a conversation with them? Or did everyone just kind of lash out at him, and then because he got lashed out at, he just lashed out back? Like, what do you expect if you lash out at someone? Now, they could take the high road, but they don't owe you anything if you're just going to lash out at them, right? I feel like if you try and be reasonable with them and then they lash out you, that's when you got them. But if you're not going to be reasonable first, right, and you lash out, then they lash out, you don't got them. You didn't prove anything. You're both just being like, I don't know, Twitter yappers at that point, right? Like, like nothing's happening.
He appears to be a really good yapper, a high volume shooter. A lot of their comments, these people think Pokemon's growth is sustainable. Okay, well that's a conversation that would be good to have. But a lot of the comments were,
hey, can you link me that tweet specifically, like the thread of the replies? I couldn't find it when I went to his.
All right, this is a different one, but this is this one.
Yeah, whatever you can find.
Topics. But a lot of the comments were, how much do you put into retirement? It's like that was just the answer for a bunch of things. Here, I'll send you that too.
These people think Pokemon's growth is sustainable. At its current rate, no, I agree with him on that, right?
Oh,
like
absolutely not, right.
Pokemon is in like a weird area, which actually is something I wanted to bring up when we were talking about the judging stuff. Like, there's a lot of growing pains in the community in general. Judges are also in the judging system. And the judging infrastructure is also affected by that, right? All the growing pains that are happening with the game growing so quickly. And what was this? I know, right? Imagine calling us poor in this scenario. Brother, we aren't the one sweating over selling Pokemon cards. Comedy career must be booming. I love to see like the overall back and forth of this, but then, how much do you invest in your retirement fund early? I mean, yeah, just like looks like they were coming at him. And
3 more of those, and that's what he just keeps responding to a lot of people.
Same thing.
Yeah. So it's like there's no discourse. So it's clearly a really good troll, and he seemed to have got a lot of people. But I think that the first post was a pretty good one. He just got attacked pretty quickly for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, his first post might have been genuine, but it's hard to tell when no one's trying to have a genuine response, at least initially. And if it turns out he is just trolling and rage baiting, and then just kind of mocks you, whatever, for your first response, then yeah, have at him, right? But you have to like have that first reasonable response and see if there's a dialogue, a back and forth to be had. I mean, this does kind of makes no sense to me. I guess he said there's every reason to maintain a thriving economy for your game cards. Players benefit from their cards holding market value rather than simply being worthless cardboard. But they are holding their market value, right? We can prove that just by looking, like you said, you basically prove that by looking at past. Like, they are holding their market value. Their just market value isn't very high. But if the market value consistently isn't high,
4 to 7 cents, you know, that it's increasing in value.
Yeah, if the market value consistently isn't high, then you can sell your $30 Guardy deck for the next $30 Tier 1 deck, right? Or make it work out that way. I do think.
Yeah, go ahead.
The one thing to be concerned about with Pokemon cards being so low is just how does that affect local game stores? That, I think, is the actually only real question to ask that really matters. Is how does that affect? Because he might be coming at it from a kind of like a collector side more. I don't know where his opinions are really coming from. But I think the big question to ask in these kind of talks about how cheap Pokemon is, which is great, it's easy to get into the game. But it's like, okay, where do local game stores get involved in that? Whereas, like, is the game too cheap and they're not actually able to make any revenue off of Pokemon anymore? They stop selling Pokemon, they don't care about Pokemon, and then people come to the shop, they can't buy Pokemon. You know, that would lead to less interest in the game theoretically, right? But I don't know actually if how cheap it is to buy Pokemon decks right now helps, or is neutral to local game stores. I actually have no clue on that.
Yeah, do we got an owner in chat that could pop in here?
Yeah, if anyone in chat has any like experience with that, works at a local game store, owns a local game store, whatever it might be, that'd be interesting.
I'm very curious about it as well, because the singles, the hardest part, right? You know, if you're selling 4, 7, 10 cent, even $1 card, they're buying in all this bulk. That's a lot of man hours to go through and try and upsell and do bigger packages and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay, Sack, that doesn't help, but thanks for the sub.
Yeah, would have been interesting to have him on and kind of have a little bit of back and forth, because I'd just be curious, like where he's coming from, and then where his, like, it's not where his financial background is, and where he like feels like he's qualified or like knows more or just like knows a lot about why this is right or why this is wrong, but like, yeah, what leads him to believe these things, one way or another. He says,
or was it just a shit post? Who knows?
Yeah, but like it feels like such a weird shit post. Like, this is what I'm saying earlier about the Pokemon. Like it's almost like the Pokemon TCG community is the problem for why these shit posts are shit posts. This would not be a shit post if no one responded to it. Like, right. it would just be a nothing. It would be nothing. We're turning these things into negative problems and things being talked about, instead of them just not existing or actually having some kind of back and forth in an actual conversation, right? Someone in chat, Logan, said, just joining. I left Magic after 20 years just because Pokemon is affordable. I would play one deck until it got bad. I have almost every meta deck built in Pokemon, and I'm leaving a game store 40 minutes from my house that I'd never been to. The and the fourth one I've been to this week, all because Pokemon is cheap. Yeah, so Pokemon being cheap is definitely good. I don't want Pokemon decks to be as expensive as Lorcana decks or Magic decks or any of that, but it's like, I'm not against the idea of Pokemon potentially even doubling in price from a $30 deck to a $60 deck if it means it's going to be that big of a difference for local game stores. But I just don't know if it actually would be a big difference. But I'm saying, like, I don't think that would be a huge strain on the community, and overall could be like a positive thing just to keep this hobby growing and thriving on, especially like a local level like that. Because, you know, if like every local game store shuts down because every card game gets too out of whack, either too expensive so no one's buying anything, or too cheap so they don't want to try and sell the things so they're too cheap, then I think it would be okay for us as a community to like step up and take that L, I guess. But I don't know if it actually is going to make a big difference or not, or would make a big difference.
And I don't know if we're going to grow the same way that we did post-COVID. This boom, how long can it be sustained? But having 4, 5 different arts of each card does help. You know, of the better cards. It does like really help change the economy, and you know.
It's the collectors off our cards.
Right, exactly. You know, because then at the end of the day, if you wanted those the black and gold cards, the Mew, the Urshifu, those were pretty cheap. But that was a cool like way to differentiate your deck. Yeah. And it makes more chase cards. I think the really cool Sea King is a promo, so that'll be, you know, chasing $30 boxes at your local game stores, or maybe your big box retailers, however you try and get your collections that way. But the card base is so diversified that I don't think it really matters. And so your $40 deck can be a $600 deck if you really want it to be.
Yeah.
If Jose's in the chat, I think it'd be a great guy to talk to.
Yeah, Jose will always have the full bling for sure. Yexer in chat, as someone who runs events at a local store and tries to make sure they are profitable, I assume for the store, it is way harder to be profitable in Pokemon than people think. Yeah, that kind of makes sense to me. I feel like that's the general sentiment that I've heard as Pokemon has gotten cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. It's just like it's harder for the local game stores to make money off of Pokemon, which makes sense. I guess, does it need to be a big part of their revenue stream is also like another question. Or is the game growing and then them throwing local Pokemon tournaments, that becomes like a new avenue for them to potentially make money, right? It's like, well, now more people are getting into Pokemon, which means more people are showing up for their Elite Cups, your League Challenges, your locals. So that would be a positive, I guess, from things becoming cheaper. But does it outweigh the flip side of not having to spend, I don't know, $70 on a Shaman EX like we had to back in the day? I mean, that's pretty miserable. I wouldn't want us to go back to those days, but...
Well, he did point out that he's trying to make profitable events.
Yeah.
Right. That's a big difference than selling product or singles. Like a lot of the card stores that I go to don't sell singles, which I think is probably your. And I don't know.
Is that becoming the
guessing.
norm? I almost assume that is probably becoming the norm. Like local stores that like don't sell online probably don't sell singles.
Yeah. So I guess if you're relying on events to make your profit, people that's the problem. What do we rant about the most is not getting prizing.
Yeah.
At events. So like I saw an event where they had like 3 or 4 prize pack boxes and were cracking them all open for themselves, and you get like first place gets 8 and like 4 packs of whatever the set was, Paldean involved, whatever. I'm like, okay, so it's in for the judges or for themselves, because they have to, sometimes the judges, they have to buy it from the store, the prize packs, so they're paying $5 or $6 for a pack, so they're paying the markup. So I get the profitability, but who's trying? Judges shouldn't be trying to make money. The stores that should be trying to make the money, and I guess that's how they do it, by charging for the prize packs, but the pricing sucks. You try and go to the places that have the best pricing.
Yeah.
You don't know. You don't go to locals.
Yeah, I'm a little bit disconnected from all that for sure. I'm not as in tune with the idea of going to one local over another, or what people are even getting for prize support at local tournaments anymore.
Yeah, I don't know either. I wish we had somebody in here who could call in, because it is interesting. Some of the locals, like I have a ton of locals around me. I don't know about you, but I have 7 or 8 game stores within a half hour that I can drive to.
Mm-hmm.
And not everyone has that. So you try and find, I know Gamers in chat, he gets to pick between 3 cups in a weekend. That's crazy amount of selection. So who do you think the good players are going to be at, or do you pick the good prizing, or what are you trying to do?
Drive that extra hour away just to try and dodge everyone.
Yeah.
I know, back when I lived in the New England area, I definitely had some moments with like the people I hung out with, where we do a little bit of a divide and conquer strategy, where we'd split up a little bit.
Sure.
And plan to not be at the same cup on a certain weekend sometimes.
What do you think about there was a little bit of discourse about the hardest, it always happens, right? The hardest area. Well, if they say Toronto and Chicago and Boston are the hardest because all these good players are there, but also the most events, like, isn't that the same thing? Like, you can find events to go to.
Yeah, I guess it depends
that don't have the players.
Yeah, I mean, it probably is like those areas. It probably is. Hang on, all the Canadians in chat, just walk away from your computers for a second. Just cover your ears. All Canadians, walk away from your computer for a second. I'm gonna say something, but it's for Americans only, so I just need you to leave for a second, or the rest of the world. Excuse me. It probably is Toronto, but it's like not like that big of a deal, like one way or another. Obviously, like locals are locals, and it's like a little bit of an increase for sure. Yeah, they do have like a lot of cups and stuff in that area as well, so you can, if there's 2 on a weekend or whatever, then I don't know though, because like some local areas are like more structured than others, where like the stores talk to each other and they try and schedule stuff out to give the players the maximum amount to play Pokemon, and they're like, we're doing this Saturday, you got next Saturday, this Sunday, that Sunday, and they schedule it out where it's like there's a tournament every single day on every single weekend instead of a couple cups bunching up on the same weekend. So it does depend on like local TO communication as well.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest complaint I've seen is a lot of people say, oh, I got 3 cups, they're all on the same day.
Yeah, and actually, I think I talked about this with like Chip on the podcast at some point, but it's like, I think it really comes down to, well, that's like another thing as well. It's like, it is actually like it's not so much judges running tournaments anymore, locals anymore. It is the stores themselves running the tournaments as well. So they're probably a little bit more disconnected from the actual Pokemon TCG community, right? But now it's like more so the store owners and less so judges stepping in to run it. I'm sure there's still some judges running at 4-star owners in some scenarios.
You still have to have a judge.
Yeah. You still have to have someone judging it, right? But like a local judge or local player in the area, like for anyone out there who's listening who has these problems, someone just needs to step up, contact everyone, get them in a Discord server, and just schedule it together. Like someone needs to step up and do it. Like if you're just sitting there complaining about, man, why are these two stores that are both 20 minutes away from me always have their leak up on the exact same Saturday when there's so many more weekends to put these things? You just got to be the one who reaches out to both parties and is like, let's get a Discord server together for all the local stores and let's calendar this together so we can all maximize players at our tournaments and the players can maximize going to tournaments. Someone just needs to Nerdy Pops, Russ in chat says, no, the TO can work for the store and also be the judge. Well, they have to like have passed like the judge qualification to some extent, right? Or they have to like do the baseline background check. There's like a baseline background check, I think.
If the store owner doesn't have judge certification, they can't run an event. You have to have somebody there.
Yeah. Someone has to have that judge certification. You have to have one person with judge certification, I assume, plus like the TO, whoever the TO is. But yeah, someone needs to step up. Like someone locally needs to step up. That's what Lorelei did in this area when she was more involved with judging and stuff. Is she got everyone on the same page, got all the things scheduled out correctly, so that way everyone, maximize attendance at the events for the stores and maximizes players' potential to go to tournaments. You should have a judge, but it's not officially required, said Snoopy. You don't.
Gotcha.
You don't have to have a judge. Only a TO. Oh, you don't actually need
somebody to run the software, I guess.
That's it. You just need someone to run the software. Is that like that's all you need? I mean, you at least need that, right?
The complicated service called Tom, which seems to be overly. Do you remember when they tried to come up with a different?
That is crazy.
Software.
Well, the funniest thing was
it fell apart right away.
Yeah, the funniest thing was Robin roasting them on Twitter. He was like, "All right, I can kind of understand PTCG Live. It's like a bigger project, a lot of things, but how do you mess up a tournament software?" He's like, when they canceled it, that was so funny, dude. Yeah, I don't know. Was it PEM? PEM?
Oh, he said it. Snoopy's gonna be mad. The fact that Robin is not, an exec at Pokemon right now is crazy.
Yeah, I mean that's what we need. We need that. We need someone like that to be put in some form of power. That'd be a perfect step.
I mean, Limitless is run for a ton of card games now.
Yeah. I mean, dude,
without issue.
Robin's resume from what he's built with Limitless and everything is like, dude, it's insane. Like his and it's all volunteer work on his end, right? Like,
yeah. Well,
not getting paid.
He's got the Patreon, so
yeah. We'll
if you guys have an extra couple dollars, go ahead and donate to the Limitless Patreon.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and link it in chat real fast. Yeah, if anyone has anything extra, go check it out. How do I find it? It's on the. Okay, I found it.
If you're paying for Peacock, delete it.
Yeah. Is that one of the? It's one of the streaming services, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, go check out if you want to support. Honestly, the biggest influence from the community in the Pokemon TCG space is far. Robin. Without saying very much, he doesn't say as much. He is vocal on Twitter but yeah, doesn't have a podcast, doesn't create content, but he does create a lot of things. Biggest influence for sure in the Pokemon space.
And you take his words with a lot of weight.
Yes,
he measures his words well.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, I saw a tweet from him right now. 20 minutes ago at NAIC finals. The first two turns combined took over 5 minutes, even though nothing happened except for a nest ball each. Very boring to watch as a viewer. Unsurprisingly, the match ended up going to time. Current price checking rules are stupid. Well, we know how Robin feels about it, but I think we've known that for a while. Robin's been
well, I agree.
Yeah, I do agree as well. Like I was saying earlier, like I think we should just get rid of it. I think it's just get away with it. I think it's fine.
Yeah, I'd love if he'd call in.
That'd be cool to have Robin on. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. One of my favorite podcasts was the Limitless podcast with Connor, and then they ran that out, and then one of the first we did with Lake of Rage was Robin, and it was like 3.5 hours. It was just a blast for me because he's I put it in the chat, parasocial relationships or whatever from Pokeduels. I didn't read it. I would have timed that out in chat because it was too long to read, but idolizing people, I guess, was the gist of it.
Is there like
I think that's kind of, I put it in there.
put a tweet?
Yeah, it was the last one before these veto ones.
Oh, okay, I see it now.
It's fine to idolize people, right? That's what sports and some of these things are. You have your heroes and people that you know, like I root for you
Appreciate it.
sometimes. But yeah, I don't know. He's if he's in chat, it'd be good to hear what he has to say about this because I didn't read it all, so who knows.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, it exists. It's kind of like a new phenomenon in the world in general, like the recognizing of it. I feel like, to be honest, parasocial relationships.
Sure, but it's fine to you follow people on Instagram you're never going to meet, and they do something cool. You're like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. The last thing I had was a little off topic now, I guess, but Lesage dropping regionals, NA regionals. This seems like such a personal take on my part. Like, you don't want to travel as much. I get it. You're about to have a child.
Let me see this one.
You go to every event.
All right, so specifically, like his response to someone, right? I saw this. Is that what you're talking about?
Zach Lesage?
Yeah. You're talking about his whole post, or just like the response?
His rumors. I guess it's not his and his own hunches. I don't know if it's his.
Yeah, I can read through this real fast.
Yeah, regionals and NA lowers from 12 to 9 events.
Yeah, since we should get news for the 24-25 Pokemon season soon, what are your hot takes? I have a few, so let's see how close I get. This info isn't official and is based off rumors and my own hunches. Definitely a lot of rumors always floating around. Challenger size cups stay the same. Regionals and NA lower from 12 to 9. I'm pretty sure day 2 will run all of these events like NAIC and Worlds. While some locations might be the same, I wouldn't be surprised to see exclusively major cities, aka no Peoria. We can only hope. And these venues will likely get locked into a contract for a few years. ICs are 3, no OCIC. We keep all 3 city locations the same, back to London, but I could see the Sao Paulo venue changing. Invite requirement stays the same. Worlds is not in the United States. I would like to see that. Post your best guesses, any rumors you have heard, or let me know how bad my takes are. I have an hour left in the drive and need some form of entertainment. So these are all things that he think might happen, will happen. But are you referring specifically to his reply that he made later on to someone else? I think I've seen this.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, where he says, let me see.
He did base it off rumors.
Yeah, but then he follows up with, so there's a back and forth here from Josh, Chillin' Snorlax, and Zach here. Less regionals feels more like a step backwards than a step forwards at the pace the game is growing and how many people are attending regionals year round. I actually kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday myself, where it's like, I feel like regionals are kind of losing a little bit of their, someone used the word flair, or just like, they feel like they don't mean as much.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think we need more. I think 12 felt fine this year. If we go to a couple less, I don't think it's the end of the world. We had 15 last year. That I didn't feel like bad. But like, I think just because the game is growing, we don't need more. I think making them bigger and better, and like I said, I think we want to head in a direction where not only things are getting bigger and better and more accessible for everyone to play in, but we also want to get to the point where it feels like esports, marketing the competition on like an esports level, where we care more about the top players, how they're doing, and emphasizing like the big tournaments and making those a bigger deal, and who wins those, making that a bigger deal, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Lesage goes, I argue we could crush attendance records if more people attended less events. We had 15 plus regionals in previous seasons and we went down to 12. I'd rather have 9 regionals if pricing went up and there were more major side events. I'm thinking like an expanded SPE at each. I mean, I'm not against that. I mean, we're already crushing attendance. I don't think, even the ones that didn't cap, we got really close to capping, right?
Yeah. Well, do you notice they cut cups at a lot of them, I think? Were there cups every Sunday?
On regionals?
We got rid of the opens. For sure. The opens are the ICs, right?
Did they have opens before?
They had one at EUIC last year.
Wait, like an open?
Yeah, Nico won.
Wait, was it a cup or a...
I think it was probably cup pricing. I don't know.
Okay. When was it cup, like championship points?
Yeah. So there were
okay.
events. So he's saying side event, SP type.
Yeah, bigger side events.
Expanded? Yeah.
Be a way to bring
I'm all right with
back.
that.
I'm not going to say, yeah. Josh replied, it really depends on what the end goal for TPCI is and what they envision a season looking like at its most successful. If having 3K plus people at every event is their goal, then I agree cutting events and editing how events are run and how pricing works would be better. I mean, that would be a call. Like if we do have less events, they probably will be bigger, right? Which kind of makes sense.
Sure.
And then Zach
and
replies,
the pricing needs to change.
Now this is like where the bad take comes in from Zach. Like,
yeah,
a F tier, create a new tier. It's so bad take. I also feel like less events puts less pressure on everyone to attend everything.
Yeah.
Being forced to attend 15 majors in a year is rough. 10 is much more doable, about 1 per month. This is what I was going back to the end of last season, where I was like, why are y'all complaining about having to play for top 22, top 16? No one's forcing you to go to League Cups and League Challenges. You know what you're getting into. No one is forcing anyone to attend everything. You don't need to go to everything. I think that's like a... That's
True
like
for you.
You got to overcome your FOMO and be like, all right, I'm only going to 7 events this year, even though there is more I could go to, or whatever it might be. For me, it is a little bit different. I am going to go to everything. I'm going to go to like everything next year, I think. Like, I'm going to Latin America. I'm going to Europe multiple times. As long as there's a regional, I'm going to try and be there, I think, next season.
But no locals.
No locals, though. No locals. I'll be busy in Europe.
Top 16 with no locals.
I'm going to try and do it again. That's what my tweet said I was going to do, so. But yeah, this is like never a reason to make less events, right?
I'm pro more events.
You're pro more events? You want more than 12 regionals?
Yeah. Okay, I want the size to go down. Okay,
so you want more smaller regional championships.
Yeah. That way they don't have to fix the CP and the prize structure. It works out the same. You know, the best events I went to were 1,200 people.
The smaller ones, yeah.
The early West Coast ones were great. So, you know, narrowing it down makes them just all IC level, and so we're breaking the record every time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't go to Orlando. I didn't want to go. I don't want to go to 3,000 people in Orlando.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't seem enjoyable. And I think there was a regional a week before, too. So I do agree with a little bit of spacing things out. One of the things I might be the only one in here. Stefan's probably not in chat. But I'm for bringing expanded back. I have all these cards. Let's use them. Like, what are we doing?
I don't know about expanded. I personally don't want to, unless they like change stuff up a lot.
Oh yeah, cut to Sword and Shield for sure.
Something they gotta do something Jurassic, but if they do that Jurassic thing, then I'm kind of down for sure. Yeah, more events. I just want the events to become more special because I feel like they're not. Maybe that's just because I go to so many. Maybe that's why I feel that way. So that could just be that could be the reason. But I feel like there's a lot, and you know, it does kind of almost hurts the value of each one individually. So you'd want more, but I assume you think that there's a certain point where there's too many, right? Because then they lose all value, right?
For sure. Yeah, I'm not trying to dilute your regional wins, Azul.
I mean, it gives me more opportunity to win more. So maybe, I mean, I'd have to stay competitive though. So yeah, if I retire eventually, we should be down to like 1 regional per year by the time I retire, just to make it impossible for someone to catch me.
No, but I mean, if you could go every 2 weeks to a regional, your frequency, as a top player, to if the cash pricing stays the same, your ability to make more money increases, right?
Yeah. I mean, it would.
You might not want to travel as much, which I think is what he's saying. But as a top player, you should finish higher anyways.
I mean, I think we've seen from... I think Bradner would be a great example of this. Like, he didn't go to as much as many of the other top players, but he definitely, his like average placing was better than most, right? If not like all players. And like, I think there is something to say about that as well. And something that really made me think about that a lot is there used to be the best Counter-Strike team in the world, Astralis. They were like by far the best. Wasn't even close. They wouldn't go to everything. They would take extra time to prepare for their biggest tournaments, which are called majors. In CSGO, they have majors. They had those 4 times a year. And even though there was like the tier below those tournaments were still really big, a lot of the best teams still went there, a lot of prize money, they wouldn't go to everything because they're like, no, we're not gonna go to this. We're gonna take an extra week than everyone else to prep for the bigger tournament. I think there's something to say with that in general. Someone asked me about that recently as well, and I was like, I think it's someone who's like goes to a lot of stuff. I was like, they were like, they had that idea of like the FOMO, right? It's like, well, if I don't go to this event, you know, I'm missing out on an opportunity. But it's like you should just like take. It's not, you shouldn't feel bad about taking an event off to be more prepared for the next event, because I think on average, if you make sure you're mentally in the right place, it's going to lead to better results. So I think generally top players shouldn't be afraid to take a couple events off, even if they could, you know, afford time wise, financially wise to go to everything. Taking an event or 2 off to make sure you're in the better mental spot for the next big one or the next one instead is probably going to be more benefit to you in the long run throughout your season, so you don't burn out and stuff like that. I think it was actually Pedro. Pedro asked me like a question in chat about that, and I was like, I think you need to become mentally comfortable with just taking an event off. Like you just need to get to that level, and that's like the next level to being more consistently, being able to compete more consistently at a high level and winning tournaments and top 8 tournaments and stuff like that. Is making sure you're in a good mental spot for the tournaments that you do go to, and not just going to every tournament irrelevant of your current mental state. For sure.
Yeah,
like something...
that FOMO hits hard when you see the stream go on and you're sitting at home.
It does.
It's a tough feeling, but
I had a big time for EUIC Frankfurt because I didn't go to Frankfurt, and I was like, I've never been to Frankfurt before. That would have been cool. And it's like, this is the first IC after COVID. But I was like, really, it would have been worse if I had gotten COVID and gotten stuck in Europe. So I was like, I can't afford to do that.
That was my big worry. So I had to plan it out, like to go get tested, and so you had to go get tested and wait and hope you're fine, and then they tell you you're good so you can fly home. Otherwise, what are you doing for another week in Frankfurt?
And hopefully you can find something cool to do there. I mean, but yeah, it would have been a drag to get stuck for sure. But yeah, that is like another thing as well. People can hit the FOMO, but like that's like a mental thing you need to individually come over. So like
more regionals.
Yeah, more or less events should just be based on what Pokemon wants to do with major events overall. I mean, we can of course we should always have our own opinions and call out Pokemon when we think they're doing something wrong. But I mean, I'm not against there being more next year, to be honest. 12 felt pretty comfortable, but as someone who travels so much, that's why I probably felt more comfortable because I'm traveling less. It's nice to have the extra downtime to work with. But yeah, I'm curious. One thing that I've mentioned before that would be cool to see them do is to turn everything under TPCI into one circuit, where they have everything in like because that's what I thought they were going to do at the beginning of last year, where they released the first part of the schedule where it was like, was it Peoria into, it was like
Pittsburgh.
Peoria into Pittsburgh into then a European event, and they're all on different weekends and it's all spread out. I thought that was super cool, and I thought the whole year was going to be that way, where nothing conflicted on the same weekend throughout the whole season. But then the next wave came out, and I was like, oh, Australian events are happening during American events and this and that, and I was like, well, I don't know. The idea of that was really, really cool because it makes every event more special, a bigger deal. Everyone in the Pokemon's community focuses on that tournament for that weekend, because it's not the Brisbane regional and the Indianapolis regionals on the same weekend, and you can enjoy and experience all of them together, whether that's be watching one of them or playing in one of them weekend after weekend after weekend. So
well, we know they're not streaming the Australian ones, so
yep, they're not doing that. Speaking of that though, there's definitely going to be a moment. I think they're going to take over Latin American next for streaming all their regionals at some point for sure. I think that has to be like the next thing they're gonna go with, probably before they start streaming Australian regionals. But I don't know, maybe they'll have ESL eventually stream the Australian regionals. Besides,
I mean, if we look at the player base for Worlds conversion rate, LA had almost 300, same as the UIC. 300 players. So
yeah,
Masters World. So the region is thriving. That's more than NA.
Yeah, and they're like like Europe had this problem at the beginning of the year where they were getting capped super hard on the potential versus what they were allowing for their players. But now it's really only Latin America that's having that problem. It feels like Europe, the organizers have figured out a good place to put the cap at. They're getting capped super low at the beginning of the season, but as the season went on, the TOs definitely stepped up. It's only in Latin America, but I mean, Copag is F tier on the tier list for a reason. So they're like,
I will say the venue was awesome. Might be the venue of the year.
For LAIC?
Food trucks in the hall. Yeah, LAIC.
Yeah.
It was far away from the hotels, but if you found the way from the parking lot to the hotel, there was a direct way. But the whole area around reminded me of Japan, where it was all malls.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was 2 or 3 malls right there. But the food trucks and like the smoking area was right there, so you didn't have to leave the hall. So you could just stay in the hall the whole time and not have to go back out and do security and all that. The only bad part was the line, which apparently TPCI figured out at NAIC, which was the big win overall. I think the top takeaway of the year is that NAIC figured out how to get rid of lines.
Yeah. I guess one other thing to go off of, I don't know how many more things you wanted to talk about if we're kind of at the end of here, but apparently, what is it called? Day 2 did run NAIC, and that's something that TPCI usually does. And that's something that Lesage mentioned in his post as well, was he thinks Day 2 is going to run all the regionals next year, which would make sense if they are running, if they ran NAIC, which I don't think they've ever done before.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I mean, that's just coming from the Lesage post, I guess. I did not know that. But yeah, they've been obviously one of the best TOs by far.
That's another thing that I mentioned before. I feel like we're only a matter of time before TOs are done away with. Well, I guess in this case it might still be a TO, but TOs are done away with, or there's just one TO. It just makes sense. The thing that makes the most sense is TPCI to have their own in-house tournament organization staff. Like that makes the most sense, is to take Jimmy and Vance and hire them full time at TPCI if that's like a possibility, and then they just run everything. Robin. Yeah, hire Robin.
There you go.
Listen, TPCI, we're gonna make a list. You hire all these people, and then you'll never hear a complaint from the Pokemon community ever again.
For real, like I mean, you put it in a different city than Columbus. Look at us. No one said a really bad word other than the heat.
Yeah.
You can't do anything about that.
Yeah, it is the summertime.
All right, I think that's all I got on the list.
All right, well, that sounds good. It was a good first episode. We're going to need everyone in chat. We're going to need y'all to go stir up some more drama before next week. But yeah, we'll plan. I mean, are you down to try and do this, weekly or bi-weekly, depending on what comes up throughout the week?
Sure. Wednesdays are great.
All right. Well, yeah, that was Yapping, episode 1. AzulGG, Grant Mathey. Catch y'all hopefully next week. If it's a slow week, maybe it'll be 2 weeks. We'll see. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Have a good one.